Welcome. This is the Leadership Academy 2021 of our district. This is the District Chorus Director Development class. My name is DC Nash. You'll see my email address here, dcnash@gmail.com. It's fairly simple. I'd rather use that than the really elongated one because this is just so much easier. But feel free after this class to keep in touch with me. You guys are directors of our district. You guys are some of the lifeblood of our district, and you are the lifeblood of our chapters. So I'm working on getting us more in contact with each other. So please feel free to hit me up anytime. If you have a problem, if you need help, if you're struggling with something, please email me at any time. That's what I'm here for. I have tools, I have resources, and if I don't have them, I know where to go get them. I have resources at BHS that can help us out. So deal? Deal. Excellent. A little bit about me. We kind of went through this just a minute ago, but for the sake of the recording, I want to make sure we have it on camera. My name is DC Nash, the VP of Course Director Development for our district. I'm the director of the Memphis Men of Harmony, tenor of Entourage Quartet. I have a few other certifications here that I'm working on and have achieved. 17-year barbershopper as well. Vern just mentioned that he is, how many years have you been singing barbershop again, Vern?
A little over 40. I think it's just 42 on my card.
Awesome. And one more time, if you don't mind giving us a quick rundown of your history and what you're doing these days in barbershop.
Sure. I'm really an acting director, you might say, or interim director for North Georgia Barbershop Singers. And that's because we are in a search for a new director. And as I say, I don't think that I'm the one that needs to be in the main slot as a director. Just I like to wave my arms, and I think I can elicit nice interpretation and that sort of thing. But that's about the extent of it. So we need somebody that's really good, and I'm just sort of holding the fort.
Excellent. Well done. We'll talk a little bit more about our roles as we develop as directors, and it's going to apply to us at very different, and I mean different as in like it applies to everybody on different levels in different ways. So we'll work through some of those challenges that you're experiencing right now, and come up with a constructive solution or creative solution. Ben McDaniel, if you don't mind introducing yourself, tell us what it's all about.
Howdy, I'm Ben McDaniel. I've been a barbershopper for about, I think, 19 years now. And I'm currently the director of Stone Mountain Chorus and the interim director for Big Chicken Chorus. And I've been singing on and off with AVP as well. And I am the tenor of quadraphonics. I've sung tenor and baritone and lead in several quartets over the years, mostly Central States District. I only moved to this district a couple of years ago. I lived in Kansas for most of my life. I used to be a music teacher, so in elementary school music teacher, so I have some background in that. And there's some similarities between teaching adult men and teaching kindergartners, so it works out.
Nice. And if I might ask, what was the reason for your moving into this district? I'm just curious. I didn't know if it's work or what.
No, my fiance lives here.
Cool.
So I met her through Barbershop, actually.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. I forgot to mention, outside of Barbershop, I'm a network engineer. So Ben, I knew you were a music educator of some sort. I wasn't sure where or how. And Vern, what was your profession, if you don't mind chiming in?
I was an engineer for a number of years with Southern Company Services, working in the regulatory support, cost of service
Awesome.
type stuff.
Cool. Mark Kettner, how about you, bud? First of all, it's good to see you again. It's been a hot minute.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, good to see you guys too, Vern and Ben and DC. My name is Mark Kettner. I have been a barbershopper for over 30 years. Got my start up in Michigan, Northern Michigan, up in Pioneer District, where I lived until 2002. I live in Kingsport, Tennessee, now up in the northeast part of the state. I'm a engineer and technology manager for Eastman Chemical, large chemical facility there. And so I've been there for 18 years. I'm the director of the Appalachian Express Chorus, Northeast Tennessee chapter. We've got kind of a vibrant chapter up here that's experienced some kind of success in the past few years, just overall, just with chapter health and singing at contests and such. So it's a fun group of guys trying to hold it together through Zoom to some degree right now, and doing what we're all trying to do to keep Barbershop alive when we can't get together. But I'm also a judge in the performance category. I'm the category specialist for performance right now, and I've been a judge for 10 years, certified. So that's what I do. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy directing. I've been directing since 2014, so about 6-7 years.
Nice. Awesome. Cool beans. One of the things that you guys are going to, there's a bunch of knowledge in this room, and there's a whole bunch of talent here. So, thank you for taking this class. As they mentioned earlier, we haven't had somebody in this position for quite a while. We used to have this position filled, and things never really took off the ground, is what I was told over time. And it's been hard to find somebody that that can fit the role, that also has connections, and also can. There's a lot of weird intertangly stuff that happens at this level, so it gets a little fun. One of the things you're going to find about me, I love lists. So this is going to look a little overwhelming at first, but there's a lot we're going to cover here. But you'll see what I mean about loving lists. This is our topic outline. This is going to be probably what we're going to dig into the first 55 minutes that we have together. This is going to be about technical discussions. So I thought about how do we want to phrase this class. I believe that this, being a director, embodies 3 different mechanisms. You got to have the mental game going. You've got to know. You've got to have the knowledge, the technical knowledge, and you also have to have control over your body. These 3 things are very, very important for a director, because as we dig in, you'll notice that there are things that you're going to have to start thinking about that maybe you're not thinking about, that will have a more positive outcome in your chapter as you're trying to teach, or as you're trying to, for lack of a better term, manipulate the people that are on the risers to get them to do what you want them to do, right? Some of those are personal things that we do. Some of those things are something that we don't have any control over. So some of those things are the things that they do. So there's a moment, and this is why I asked you about the 3 rules, or why I put the 3 rules in the class. There's a moment where we're going to take that mirror and we're going to turn the mirror around and realize, oh, I'm part of the reason why this might be happening. Okay. So with that being said, make sure we respect each other, be honest, make sure you respect yourself. There's times where, as a director, I get into a funk where I'm like, oh, I'm the worst director ever. There's no way. How am I ever going to get this done? And I turn out on the other side and realize, I'm the guy, and we'll get into all this. Okay, so first of all, technical discussions. Let's talk about curing pitch problems. One of the questions that were brought to me from you guys was how do I keep my chorus from losing tonal center? One of the ways, and probably I would lobby, one of the most important things. I'm skipping around on my, here we go, is vocal tension. It's the #1 cause of pitch sag. Vocal tension is the reason why your chorus sags in pitch. So how do we combat that? There's all kinds of different things, and I have my own beliefs on where we need to start. First of all, there's multiple tension points that are found within the body. So introducing those to you guys and getting an understanding of where they are is going to take you to the next level of how to teach other people how to do this right. So there's multiple tension points found in the body. The #1 being posture. As I've found throughout the districts, as I've gone through the judging circuit, there is a large section um, of our singers that don't or haven't been taught the importance of posture when you sing. Um, are there, first of all, what is everybody's thoughts about posture just in general? Like, do you guys teach about posture? Is this something that you bring to the table often, or is this something you just kind of mention and let it go?
I think my guys have generally heard a lot of performance related talk from me, so they get kind of the more of a little bit of a just standing naturally. But it's kind of a mix. You don't want to a lot of tension comes from just putting yourself in a position on stage that's uncomfortable. I think of the old days of when I was the late 80s when I started singing Barbershop and everything we had to do to make it look that. I mean, that was creating a lot of tension. So my guys have really taken more of a natural approach. It's not slumping, it's not slouching, but there's no tension in the way you're standing. I remember the old chest out, and always on the ball of your foot and all that. Well, I mean, that's technique that can offer some advantages maybe for somebody who's not familiar with the right way. But my guys have just taken a really nice, relaxed approach and all that allows them to not create anything unnatural, I guess. And it helps them with just keeping pitch on it's not being nothing's being forced through a tight nozzle, if you know what I mean.
You're muted,
Yeah,
DC.
thank you. Anybody else? Does anybody else harp on posture or talk about it or even mention it in their chapters?
I don't harp on it as much as I probably should. I was a member of Central Standard for a number of years, so I got the body alignment straight from Rob. And one thing about the way Rob does things is everything he does is quite individualized, which I think is important when you're working with body alignment or posture. Because there are people, I mean, for the most part, we have similar issues with singers have similar issues with their body alignment, but they're not exactly the same. And if you have a person, if you give everyone a blanket statement that's very specific on their posture, I mean, there are some things you can say that are universal, but a lot of times what'll happen is somebody who's already doing something maybe will try harder to do something and get more tension. So I'm pretty careful with my terminology. I'm not as comfortable putting my hands on people as Rob is, and so I don't do his approach. So I try to get to it in other ways. I use some of the phrases that I like that I've gotten from him and from people from other similar folks like Steve Scott. One thing Rob says that I love is he asks people to stand like a successful singer. He asks people to have a moderately proud sternum, which I think is a way to get the upper body better in alignment without some unnatural things that cause excess tension. So I do some of that, but I do also think that if I could work a little more with, since so many singers have the forward head issue that causes so much excess tension in the vocal mechanism, if there's some things I could do to get that, I think Steve sometimes has folks do a thing with their arms, and I think maybe adding that into the repertoire might into the, sort of the warm up or whatever you want to call it, the ensemble building at the beginning of rehearsal might help.
Absolutely. And I completely agree with everything you just said, even down to the individualist discussions. I think there's a broad generalization of what you should do as far as standing in posture and alignment. But you are 100% correct. It's not everybody does the same thing. It's because the way that Ben stands, Ben may stand perfectly fine. But again, Ben may have this head thing going on when he breathes or when he's moving or whenever he drops pitch or raises pitch, things like that get in the way of the vocal mechanism. But so it comes down to you as the director needing to have a relationship with your singers to a point where you can say, Ben, I noticed that everything else you're doing is fine. If you can adjust this, and see if that helps reduce some of the tension that's coming out of your voice. So having a very candid conversation like that with one of your singers is I wouldn't say it's hard to get to. It's not really hard to get to because they're there on the risers. They want to learn. They want to know, right? But some people are a little sheepish about going for the jugular, right? So so go straight for what's causing the biggest problem and see if you can help with that. And if you can't do it, get somebody that you know can. You know, at the end of the day, you may not be the perfect person to do this. You may not be the person that should teach this. Maybe giving them the document that I'm going to give you guys later on might be better. And a lot of the resources I'm going to reference are on the BHS website. So, but posture is extremely important for a number of reasons. One of them, and this is the link I was mentioning earlier. I'm going to bring it up here. So this is on the BHS website, and it talks about how to adjust your alignment and exactly what Ben was talking. Sometimes people will try to achieve the alignment where the ear holes are over the center of the shoulder, and then they'll overdo it, and then they'll end up in this position. Well, this position is completely unnatural for the singer. And at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is reduce the amount of strain and stress that are on the abdominal muscles and on the rest of the muscles in the body. If you can get the skeletal frame to do the work for you, then all of there's a thing that happens with your body when you put strain on it. When you and you can evidence this when you use the restroom. When you pick up something heavy, if you try to pick up a chair or something, go ahead and try it. I mean, just pick it up and you'll hear the tension hit your voice because it's a safety mechanism for the vocal folds. What happens is the vocal folds have muscles underneath them called the, I don't remember what their technical name is, but people refer to them as the false vocal folds. And they will slam shut underneath your vocal folds in order to protect them. It might actually be on top of them. I can't remember, but they slam shut to protect the vocal folds so that you don't put too much forceful air through them. So with that said, a lot of times when we get out of alignment, we accidentally engage the abdominal muscles. And you can hear when I'm leaning over, the farther I lean over, the more I'm seriously not trying to put strain here. It's just happening. And then you can hear when I kind of relax and get into the position, you can hear my voice carry a little bit easier, and I'm not straining quite as hard as I have to strain when I lean forward like that. Does that make sense? So a lot of what we're, so body alignment is all about that. It's your body needs oxygen to do what it needs to do, right? Fundamentally, when we're looking at all of the, at the very nitty gritty, every muscle you have engaged sucks up oxygen from your body. Well, you need some of that oxygen in order for you to breathe, in order to have your vocal folds there and not tax your muscles out or have the burning sensations you get when you're holding a long note for 60 seconds, right? Well, if you're robbing your body of that oxygen, your lungs and the rest of your body taxes out and it goes, I need oxygen now. And you can't use all of that air because at that point you don't care about oxygen. You're trying to close the vocal folds and apply pressure beneath them. But I know this is getting this is getting really technical. Hey Paul. But yeah, so if you're pushing all of that up underneath and you're putting a lot of force on the vocal folds, all of that is just oxygen. That's or it's just air. That's all we care about. But our bodies require oxygen. So if we're pushing and pushing and pushing and have all this tension, then we rob our body of oxygen, and then we're forced to let go. Even though we have air there still, we're forced to let go because we have to breathe. We go right. So that's what we're trying to avoid. Posture helps with that. So that's number one. If there's anything that you can get out of this session, go home and teach your guys how to stand right on the risers. It is super important, and it's not necessarily all the ball on the foot stuff like they used to teach back in the old days. It's shifted from that. Even you can do that still, but don't compromise the mechanism. This is like it is an instrument. It's like a trombone. And if you bend the trombone or put a kink in it, it's not going to trombone anymore, right? Same concept. So use this link. I'll make sure you guys get this slideshow and this. Any questions about that? Excellent. The next thing I want to talk about is breathing. How many of us talk about breathing in our sessions? What are your thoughts on that, Vern?
We do that every week. At least mention it and talk about how to do it right. Now, we don't go into great detail or anything like that. It's basically reminding from previous times that we've talked about, that we have gone into great detail about how to breathe and that sort of thing. We just try to remind everything. I guess it's, after this pandemic lockdown is lifted, then perhaps we can revisit the work in detail and in getting ramping back up.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I've got.
Yeah. Mark and Ben, do you have any thoughts about breathing and what you currently today teach your chapter?
We I do some breathing exercises at the beginning, like during warm-ups, just to kind of develop a little bit of that feeling that they're getting of it, kind of expanding around the diaphragm and really kind of controlling the valve a little bit from a length standpoint. But we really got a good tip from Rick Spencer. Rick used to come and coach our chorus on occasion, and we had a couple songs that were a little bit more taxing, where there weren't in places where there were not ensemble breaths. And his tactic was really easy. It was just, he said, sometimes we just need to breathe more. And the guys really latched onto that, and the songs carried a lot of fidelity through those big phrases where you wanted them to, because the guys were finding spots where they could do it, where it didn't sound like everybody was trying to grab the same spot. Obviously, he told us you don't want to do that, but if you could breathe more, some of us may not have to, some of us may. And that really, as simple as it was, that's what you like, is simple concepts in coaching that the guys can, grab onto right away. And that really helped us a lot on a couple of our up tunes, especially where there's a little bit more of a, they're a little bit more acrobatic and you have to, maneuver through them. But that's something that, I'm constantly talking to those guys. If I hear spots that they may forget for a minute, that they can do that, it's a good reminder.
Yep. Yeah, I would, if you're talking extensively about breathing in your rehearsals, I would encourage you not to. At the end of the day, we typically sing with way too much air. And as a tenor, I sing and I sung with way too much air back in the day. So bad that I went back and I watched a few videos, which you'll see in one of them later. And I had to do, bad DC, you were wrong for doing that back then. So I've learned we are obsessed over how much air and how much breath we have and holding a note for 60 seconds. If you want to hold a note for that long, fix your posture and don't take in so much air. That's seriously what it is. When you let the pressure out, what's happening is you're putting so much tension down here up underneath, and you're overinflating everything that your muscles have to actually work opposite in order to support all of that strain. So you're burning through your oxygen way faster than you think you need, than you really should be. So if you let some of the pressure off, then it's a gentle push forward and you allow the valve to control. But a lot of people think that this is a muscular thing that has to happen and I have to make it happen. No, it's more of an allow happen. You should fill up the balloon underneath and you should allow it to expand or contrast on its own. Now there are some very few exceptions to that rule, like belting, things like that. That's a little bit different. And belting's not the same as a barbershop long post. However, you can use similar techniques to do that. So typically we sing with too much air. My suggestion is only take what you need to finish or complete the phrase. That's all the air you need. The most important piece of that is when you're done and you take your breath, release the abdominal muscles. If you don't release the abdominal muscles, then you're going to end up doing what's called breath stacking, which is heart of my heart, I love you. I can't take any more air, right? And then what am I doing? I'm just adding to this tension that now I have to manage here. That if I just took heart of my heart, I love you, life would be not, how much do you really need is the question. So only take as much air to complete the phrase. Make sure your singers are releasing their abdominal muscles. That's it. That's all you need to teach about breathing. If they want to work on some breathing exercises at home, it's encouraged. I think that it helps when you get into more advanced types of singing. But for barbershoppers, we don't need that. We just don't. We don't typically use it. So now we're going to get into some advanced mechanics. So we talked about posture. We talked about breathing. Now we're going to get into talking about the larynx and the pharynx, and more specifically, how to manipulate the larynx and what kind of options exist there and what do they do. And then what is the pharynx and the oropharynx and all of these other technical terms I'm going to use. Anybody here vocal pedagogy people?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Cool. So I'm just using fancy terms for voice box, fancy terms for the space in the back of the mouth and the tube that connects the two together. So you've got your larynx sits right about here, and then you've got this tube, which is the pharynx, and then you have all the space in the back of the mouth, including the soft palate, which is called the oropharynx. So when you manipulate your larynx can go and go up, and go and go down. Do you see it moving? It's kind of weird. Mine doesn't jut out quite as far as everybody else's, but I also have smaller vocal folds, which is why I sing tenor. So you can manipulate the larynx up. You can manipulate the larynx down. You can also manipulate the larynx this way, like it's got a muscle that pushes and tilts itself either forward or backward. And you can hear both of those qualities by saying nay, 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 no, 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 like using sob, sob, sob makes your larynx come down and back. When you use the nay, 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 hey, wise guy, eh? Wise guy. Your larynx comes up and forward. And all that does is tightens the vocal folds just a little bit and adjusts the point of focus in the mouth to be pointy and to filter out the lower frequencies and filter out and to where you're hearing the higher frequencies more. In sound, we talk about frequencies. When you clap your hands, it creates a frequency in the air. All frequency is a cycle or modulation, and it comes from, in this case, the movement of air. So when you vibrate air and it vibrates, what frequency are we vibrating, right? So A is 440 hertz. So we're going to get into some of the equivalencies of hertz and everything else when we get into how we're manipulating the filters. Does that make sense? Am I losing anybody yet? Okay.
So far.
So this is like drinking from a fire hose, okay? I know this is a lot of information. We were going to have it recorded so you can go over it a bunch. And if I'm wrong about something, please, and you find out later, please point it out, because that means I need to teach. I need to change what I'm teaching. But anyway, no. So the larynx has all of these features. We can manipulate it. The oropharynx, we can't really do much with the pharynx other than make it longer or shorter based on where our larynx sits. So when we lower the larynx, you're lowering it and you're creating more space here, which creates a deeper tone, though it's not deeper. You're just not filtering out the lower frequencies. Does that make sense? It's like a tube. You know those tubes that you go, you know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Okay, Ben knows what I'm talking about. So when I was a kid growing up, they have like these long tubes, and the guy that teaches, I can't remember his name. He teaches the physics of sound class at Harmony University. He has a bunch of them, but they're stretchy pieces of plastic, and when you stretch them out, it's like a whip, but they're hollow. And when you whip them around, it's like blowing into a bottle. It goes whoo. And so when you whip it around in the air, it creates a certain frequency at a certain, like an F or an A or something like that. Just trying to think of oh yeah. So what you're doing is you're actually filtering out the lower frequencies from the upper frequencies. Same concept. So that's what we're doing with the pharynx. We're actually elongating it or making it shorter. The longer it goes, the more lower frequencies we're accentuating. When we raise it, the more higher frequencies we're accentuating. Now you can have one of those little whirly things and it be a bigger tube, but it still be an F, but it's putting out lower frequencies instead of the higher frequencies of F, or filtering them out. Make sense? So we also have
Is that the
Mhm.
is that the idea about dark and light tones?
So dark and light tones are more of what we're doing in this filter here. Um, though the pharynx can have an effect on that. Typically, when we drop the larynx, people often get to the sob sound. Oh, because they want to sound more bassy. Oh, and it's actually counterproductive to creating a more bassier sound. Um, Surprisingly, because you're muffling the other frequencies that are going to help you create overtones. Does that all make sense? We're going to dig into that even deeper. so, um, so when we execute sob, and you can do that now, oh, like you're crying. Oh my God, I can't believe you did that to me. Oh. That sob is lowering the larynx, and you're tilting the larynx back, which creates, Vern, what you're talking about. That yeah, it does what you're talking about. When you do the opposite, that na 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 na, you're actually taking your larynx and tilting it forward to filter out the lower frequencies. Does that make sense? That's the difference between bright ha 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 is where you're placing the sound in the oropharyngeal space and what you're doing with your tongue. Does that make sense? There's a whole lot of mechanics that happen right here. So our normal singers really need to focus on the posture game and the breathing game before they get anywhere near any of this. There's definitely teach them to keep the alignment, teach them to sing with a neutral larynx. And if you need to know what that feels like or how to teach that, talk to somebody, ask them to suddenly gasp, right? When you do that, the larynx automatically sits in the neutral position. Nay, 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 as opposed to nay, 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 right? So one is a neutral larynx. The other one was a more slightly raised and tilted forward larynx. So here's the relaxed. Nay, 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 nay. Here's the a little bit tighter and forward. Nay, 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 nay. Makes sense? So we want the first one, not the second one. The second one actually introduces tension in the voice because you're pushing it forward. And now, if that's the sound quality you're going for in your tune, let's say it's a jokey part of the song, then you might want that quality of sound. So then it becomes more of why are we doing those things, and are they habit, or are we doing it because we're trying to get a specific effect? Does that all make sense? Cool.
And one thing I'd like to add to that, I've found that if you explore effects like that, because most people can do them, maybe just by mimicking, maybe with some technical instruction, but a lot of times they can just mimic funny sounds. And if you do those on a spectrum, and then say we're looking for the neutral one, if you can teach them how to make high larynx sounds and low larynx sounds, then that makes it easier for them to find the middle rather than just like not knowing anything about what we're talking about. You know, I mean, a lot of your singers, your amateur singers who are just there on whatever night, aren't going to, it's going to be hard for them to access, you know, what is the difference between what I'm doing and what he wants me to do? Well, make this funny sound and make this funny sound. We want what's in the middle.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a very valid point. Vowel formation. So we talked a little bit about that. Vowel formation is all about the tongue. What are we doing with our tongue? What are we doing with the tongue and the soft palate? It's really more so the tongue. So when you adjust your tongue, most of us, and this goes back to what we were talking about earlier with the dropping of the larynx and all of that oh sound. Typically, when we and this happens a lot with basses, and I pick on basses to an extent. I love basses, but we like to hear ourselves. I like to hear myself too, but it's not so much a like, it's so much a I'm using this as a tool to make sure that I'm in the right pitch, key, etc. But what we're doing when singers do that, they elongate, they overextend the oropharyngeal space. Ha! I'm Jeff Oxley. Ha, 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 right? So they make that sound, and it's just too big, it's too open, and it introduces tension. If you can get them to sing with a neutral larynx, it will allow their tongue, and this is focusing on their tongue now, have them stick their tongue out. Oftentimes when we try to drop the larynx, we suck the tongue back into our mouth. The next time you're singing with your chorus, see if you see anybody that's doing this. Seriously, it happens. And there's more people in your chorus that are doing that. And then they're forcing themselves to sing louder, physically causing more tension because they're not loud enough. Well, if they get their tongue out of the way, then it allows sound to come out easier, and they're able to actually let off the gas pedal because you're going to get a whole lot more action audibly outside of their voice, outside of their mouth, when they drop their tongue out and they get it out of the way. So common impediments are dropping of the larynx too far, overextension of the oropharyngeal space, and then your tongue. The tongue sucks back into the back of the mouth. If you can get those three things in shape and you start getting your members aware of that, your singers aware of that, then you're going to see slow progressions of improvement over the next several months. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take time. It's going to take you helping them drill it out and figure out what's going on. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll introduce these concepts at the beginning of our rehearsal, like Ben was talking about earlier. And like with this thing, I do you'll see that exercise in the body alignment stuff on VHS. This exercise is wonderful. It's great for fixing alignment issues. So what I do is I teach this tool at the beginning of class, at the beginning of our session. And then when people, as we go through our rehearsal, then I say, hey, guys, go back to your position, use the tool. And I give them free rein to use that tool at any point in time in rehearsal if it's going to help them. The only time that I ask them not to do it is when we run a set. So when we're running a set, please do not do this. Please do not use any of the tools, because that's what you use all the other time when you're practicing. You know, that's the point of practice. When we're doing the set, we're actually pressing go and doing go time. Make sense?
Yeah, I have various warm-ups that I use for various things, and one of them, because that excess tongue root tension is such an issue, that's one that I've come up with a few different ideas for. One thing that happens to a lot of folks, because it can be related to trying to sound deeper, is that for a lot of folks, that excess tongue tension and retracting the tongue kicks in at a certain point as they go down.
Mhm.
So like basses as they descend, if you have a point where the voice starts to react differently, it probably sounds fine to the singer, but to
Right.
everyone else, they lose richness. Yeah. And so like one of the warm-ups that I have been doing regularly to try to break that habit is I have guys do what I call a tongue hum, which is humming with the tongue out between the lips, like that. So, and I have, various patterns to use, but it's using a descending pattern so that as they get lower and lower, they'll notice when their tongue tries to jerk back into the mouth. And it's just a habit thing where you have to get to where you do it over and over again until that habit goes away. And like you say, using those, introducing those at the beginning of rehearsal and working through them then, and then having them do it later when they need it is great.
Yep. And I think one of the other I use a similar spinoff of that, but I'm taking that and I'm going to put that in my tool bag because that's a great one. I did a similar thing where I had them hold their tongue out and physically hold it because some people were incapable. No offense, some people can't walk and chew gum at the same time. So having something there that forces them, and I handed out napkins and stuff. I'm like, here's a bunch of napkins. You guys are going to need it. And they're like, what the heck do we need these for? And I'm like, and they're like, oh, I get it. And so I made them do it, and a lot of them it clicked, and a lot of them are like, I still don't understand why I'm standing here with my tongue. And I'm like, okay, well, we'll work on something else. Here's the main point. Not every tool is going to work for everybody. You're going to have to find multiple different ways to explain it. You're going to have to find multiple different ways to hack their brain and get them to get the light to come on. And there's a million different ways, but some of the best ways are the ones that you think of on the spot. Some of the best tools you get are the ones that you think of that day. Or
Yeah,
5
that tongue hum that I came up with was during the warm up before my chorus in Wichita, Kansas was mic testing for the international chorus contest, and the guys were like, just their voices were blown out from a week of stuff, and it was early in the morning that Friday morning, and I'm like, how am I going to get rid of this tongue tension? And I came up with that tongue hum thing on the spot, and I've used it ever since.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Bob, how are we doing? How you doing, man?
Great. How are you, DC?
Doing good. What time do we normally break? I can't remember.
It's going to be at 12, well, about 2 minutes.
There should be a countdown on the screen.
Yeah,
It
there
says
is. It's
5
there-
minutes,
there's-
36
okay, we got
seconds.
5 minutes. Okay,
Yeah, and that'll send us back to the big room when that timer goes off.
perfect.
Yeah,
Cool.
I don't know if you've mentioned this, DC, but these guys in their Zoom rehearsals can invite Steve Scott sometime to join their Zoom rehearsal and give some vocal techniques.
Absolutely.
He's
I
awesome.
mentioned I mentioned earlier, if you don't have the knowledge or you're not comfortable teaching those concepts yet, absolutely reach out and we can get people there in your Zooms, on your meetings, or come out there, whatever we need. If it's provide a video for you, even we can get that to you however you need to. So there's vowel formation. We talked about that. The vowels are formed typically from the tongue. So whenever you have vowel problems, things like that, look at what people are doing with their tongues. The way I like to think about this space is like a 3 or maybe a 4-dimensional. I don't know if that's true, but I think of it as just a space. It's like I'm sitting inside of the center of a circle, and there's a crosshair, right? But it's like a 3-dimensional crosshair, right? It goes this way as well. So this crosshair can be placed at any point, anywhere in the mouth. So where is that crosshair, and are we making sound targeted for that crosshair in the mouth? Does that make sense? So that's the way, for whatever reason, I think about when I manipulate all of these filters. I hear what other people are doing, and then I go, okay, so their crosshair is like here, but their crosshair might need to move forward just maybe half an inch. That small, again, we're talking about teeny tiny little changes that we're doing here that have a monstrous effect out here because of exponential stuff that happens in the harmonic series we're about to get into literally right now. So this gets what's called into vowel tuning. So as we talked about earlier, We have notes that happen at certain hertz. We have vowels that become super active or excite even a higher range of frequencies. So depending on what we do with our mouth and how we adjust the sound in our mouth and where that crosshair is located affects how many of these frequencies up here we're activating. Does that make sense? This all falls into what the harmonic series is. So we have the harmonic series, which is anybody not familiar with the harmonic series? If you aren't, feel free to raise your hand, please. Okay, cool. So we have the harmonic series. If you look at it on a spectrograph, you can practice this. So, and they have them for your cell phones. Look up a spectrogram or spectrograph, and you can sit here and play it, and you can sing into your phone, and you can see how much of the overtone series you're completing with your tone. And then you can adjust the vowels. So start with and adjust and see how you're affecting the frequency ranges in the top of the spectrograph. I got so nerded out on this for quite a while that I took a spectrograph. Actually, I took a microphone and I took my laptop up to chorus rehearsal and I projected it onto a big screen back in front of the chorus. So the chorus could see when they were singing what was actually happening and when they did great, because it's a visual representation of when you're ringing chords, right? If everybody rings it right and if everybody's doing what they should, you're going to see this whole section up here go. You're going to get like 5 or 6 lines that just go straight, solid, just. And if and that means that the tones that you're producing down here are and the way that the ensemble is creating those sounds. Let's say this dude's singing a C, right? He's singing a C and it's making a pattern in the harmonic series this way. Well, this guy's singing a G, right? So his is doing the exact same thing. Maybe they're offsetting each other this way and crossing points at the same time in the series as they move up frequency ranges. Does everybody get that concept? That's a tough one to think about because you don't have a physical representation of it. It's all up in here. But when you do that with all 4 people and all 4 people align their vowels just right, or the ensemble of 4 parts aligns all their vowels just right in their best voice, right? Then you create overtones like mad. Then you get Central Standard type or Westminster type chord ringing, real ringing, not forced ringing, real calm, relaxed ringing. Okay. Chorus spacing, we'll get into this when we come back from our break. It's not going to take us long to knock out the last part of this list, and then we'll get into the mental part of the game. Cool? Sweet. I'll see you guys here in just a few minutes.
Make sure to, Charlie, you're on mute. When everybody comes back to this room, it automatically mutes you. Sorry, but also.
I just discovered I still had the pause button down here. I want to pause recording or turn it off.
If it allows you to pause it, then pause it.
Okay, I paused it.
If it allows a pause, then do that. Or if it doesn't, then stop it. I think the most updated version now lets you pause. So he just walked away. He's still recording. It's okay. We'll edit these parts out. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna refill some water.
Yes, I think everybody should be back now. So the next session is going to start at 2:40 and Eastern time, 1:40 Central time, 2:40 Eastern time, and it's going to automatically put you into your rooms at 2:40 at that time.
Okay. Melinda, I sent you an email about 20-30 minutes ago, but I guess you didn't get it. We were wondering about whether we should he was supposed to pause the video or stop the video recording.
Did you send me a text or sorry?
Email.
I tried to do a broadcast message with my phone number. I don't know if everybody saw it. Some people did. Did he pause or did he stop? Was that Charlie?
Yes, I think he
He
paused.
paused it.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you have the option to hit pause, awesome. Not everybody has the option to hit pause, depending on if you're on the website or if you don't have the most recent version of Zoom.
Okay, cool. All right. Thanks.
All right, you'll be.
I'm going to go back real quick because there's a section of my presentation that I skipped over because I was just talking. Get a little nervous sometimes. I'm like, but anyway, this is when we were talking about mental discussions. I forgot to stop at this outline, so I'm going to go ahead and let that sit here for a minute while we wait for Mark. Like I said, I firmly believe that there are three different aspects of directing. There's the mental game, there's the physical skills part of it, and then there's the body stuff, or sorry, control over your body. So, technical knowledge, mental skills, mental game, and then control, body control. Thank you. I've got you should see my, I've got a bunch of stuff when I was writing out what I wanted to put in this class. And I've got a bunch of pictures I've got, what are they called? Dry erase, like glass dry erase boards, but they're part of our, we got 2 IKEA cabinets. So they're like super big panels. And it looks like Memento or or something similar. I just got stuff just scribbled all over the place. But that was one of the things. I've got a Venn diagram that shows mind, body, and control. And in the middle is director. So if you can think about that as we proceed. Mark, this is the slide that I kind of skipped over earlier. I was a little nervous when I started this recording, so
you're actually not sharing the slide.
Oh, shoot! Oh man, look at that! Fail. Technology fail for me. Man, I was so.
It's just like chorus rehearsals, at least for me.
Right? Okay, here we go. Sorry about that, y'all. I'm still new to hosting events. This is my first class that I've taught, so it's going really well. I was trying to go the entire recording without saying that, so. But here we are. All right, so this was what I was talking about with mental discussions and the mental game. We're going to get into that after we finish this set of slides. So let me get back to where we were. By the way, it's the vestibular folds, which are the false vocal folds, and that happens. Yeah, this is the one we need. And that happens. They sit on top of the vocal folds, so they sit on top of the real vocal folds. So your real vocal folds sit here. The vestibular or superior vocal folds sit here. Superior folds are not vocal folds. Okay. Technical. Here's we are. Chorus spacing. This is really important, and I'm putting it here because nobody talks about it. And when I show up to contests and I'm judging and I'm going through the thing, this is the #1 easiest thing you can do with your chorus that will increase their sound, that will make them sound bigger, better, stronger, and build less leaners and build more independent singers. Give them the space they need on the risers to do their job on their own accord. The difference between your singers feeling constricted versus feeling free on the risers is chorus spacing. It builds stronger singers, it builds less leaners, forces independence in a positive way. We have 2 examples of spacing here. I would like to show you which one do you want to do first? Excellent or bad?
How about bad?
All right, we'll do bad first. I don't know if, oh yeah. So this is an example of bad spacing. If you notice the chorus and this gentleman here in the corner, I'm digging on myself here. So for a long time, my chorus stood this way. It was almost as if we were taking a picture every time. And unfortunately, what that does is it constricts your members, because then they only feel like that they can talk in this space right here. because they're so constricted. They got people in front of them, they got people beside them. It gets really hard. But if you give them the space, they can fill it out and they don't feel like they're yelling into the guy's ear in front of them or next to them. Does that make sense? So giving them the space. So they need at least elbows length with both people. So an elbow, so this would be like guy standing here and then elbow length right there, guy standing there. There's like almost an arm's length worth of space between me and where dude number 2 would be, or person number 2, right? Same thing front to back. You need to make sure that your members on the risers have space front to back too. So allow them to spread out, allow them to take over as much of the risers as they're comfortable with. And over time, what you're going to see is your chorus is going to do this accordion thing. They're going to go nee, 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 nee after a while, and you're going to go, why did you guys do that? Spread out again. They're going, nee, 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 nee. And then, a few songs later, they're going to be back here again. And so this is an accordion thing that as long as you keep reminding them, hey, guys, take over your space. Hey, guys, make sure you're in your space. Or you can even tape out your risers if you want to. But give them the space they need. And if you see them contract too much, fix it. Get them to stand in the spot that they need to stand in so they're comfortable. A lot of times you're going to see leaners doing that. You're going to see them slowly work their way back over to the guy so they can hear him, right? Well, that's for the birds, right? That's gonna allow them to have to sit here. Now, there is strategy with that. There's strategy with how you position the people in the chorus. You know your singers, you know who your leaners are, you know who your strong singers are. So use that to your advantage. When you stack your chorus, think about that. Who are my leaner singers, and how can I make them stronger singers? That might mean that you need to put a stronger singer behind a leaner singer until they're used to hearing the song in a certain way, and then move them, right? So I like to move the people in my chapter often because I don't want them to get comfortable sitting in one section, sitting in one place all the time. Like, move them around, and then when it's time for contest, then place them as which voices you have signed up for. Then they'll be used to moving, right? You're already ahead of the game. Then you can say, how do I want to tune my chorus to make sure that I have the right sound, making sure that I have, if you prefer the bass wedge in your chorus formation, you can create your bass wedge and you'll know which basses to put where. Make sense? But still spacing, you got to have the space. So this is bad spacing, as you see on the screen here. You're welcome. And let me show you what good spacing looks like. And speaking of, tell me if you guys hear the sound.
Kansas City, Missouri.
You hear it?
Under the direction of Rob Mance, Central Standard.
You'll find out I have a crush on Central Standard and Westminster both equally. You see how spread out they are? Ben, do you remember how many people were in the chorus at this point?
It might have been 43 that year.
So it's not a 100-man chorus. And what,
yeah, we're taking up all 11 risers.
And I believe you guys placed second, right?
Third.
Third.
Yeah. I've never been higher than third, so it must have been third.
Cool.
I wasn't with them when they got second.
Oh, yeah.
Here I am.
The year before.
Yeah, this was Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I'm in the back row there.
Yep. Right here.
It's such a weird song.
But you see, they again, how many people? 46?
I think it was 43, but I'm not sure.
43. Okay. You see how they're taking use of in every inch of that riser that they can. And again, it's a psychological thing. That is a total psychological hack. When you get the people too close together, they're just going to sing in a smaller space and they're not going to use the best voice possible. So
I will say one of the most surprising things about using that larger spacing is how much easier it is to hear everyone. Because when you're standing close, you hear the people right beside you. And since a person right beside you is 10 times louder than the person, a couple of feet further over, you can only hear those people. But when you're standing the way we were here, I can hear like everybody like far away just pretty well because there's nobody right in my ear. And then the other big thing, which you've been touching on this, but I think saying it real specifically is important. It's very good for vocal health. Because the same reason that people lose their voices when talking in a loud environment, like in a cafe or a bar or something like that, you use your voice in the wrong way when you're in a loud environment. And when you're standing next to other people singing, you use your voice in that wrong way. It's called the Lombard effect. And you hurt your voice and you don't sing as resonantly, you don't sing as beautifully if you have other people right beside you. So, I mean, unless you have too many people to fit on the risers, which I don't think any of our choruses do, that extra space is great.
Yeah, absolutely. Ben, absolutely. And you're right on the money, bud. Sweet. So yeah, you're going to see a couple more videos of Central Standard, maybe one more. I can't remember how many I have. And we're going to watch some Westminster here in a little bit too.
Yeah, and that audio was coming out of your speakers and into your mic, so it was like hard to hear. So
Yeah,
it wasn't being shared, I don't think.
Yeah, no, we're going to need to fix that later. Do you guys have familiarity with that? Because I haven't actually.
Yeah, you should be able to change it without even changing your, without unsharing your screen. You should have on the menus up there, there should be a drop-down menu that has a selection for sharing sound.
I got it. Cool. Yeah,
So-
I've never used that feature. So this will be fun.
Yeah.
Yay. Thank you, Ben. I appreciate it.
Uh-huh.
Sync issues. So we talked a little bit about let's get into what do you do when you have a sync issue. There's a bunch of different ways to approach it. There's a bunch of different ways to a bunch of things really to think about. And this is going to get into a little bit of that mirror turning thing I was talking about earlier. One of the ways that I usually go towards sync issues are start removing elements, things that are going to impede the group from achieving synchronization. So a lot of times those are words. So think about a really, I'm trying to think of what's a good tune with a bunch of wordy stuff in the middle. A lot of times we get out of sync with that kind of stuff.
How could you believe me when I know you've been a liar all my life?
I don't know that song, but I've heard it.
Oh yeah. How could you believe me when I said I love you when you know I've been a liar all my life?
Yeah. So imagine trying to sync those words up, right? In the tune. Well, take the words out, and then have everybody sing it on an ah. Ha 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 ha. One of the ones, I don't know why I love you like I do. I don't know why I just do. That's a common synchronization, point in that song. So when you get to that point, ha 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 is a way. So remove the words. Another way after that is maybe it's a note problem. Maybe where they are in their voice, in their tessitura, maybe they're getting closer to areas that they strain or that they're having a physical problem with, and they're focused on that. So take the notes out next, and let's see if we can get them to sing just in a chanted pattern. So you can chant. I don't know why I love you like I do, or or da 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 da. Another really good technique to use is staccato. So have them shorten everything that they do. I don't know why do I, for the harmony parts, or I don't know why I love you like I do. And when you staccato and you shorten it, it's amazing. You'll find out how many people are not following you. So when you go through those, so start removing elements. Okay, so remove words, remove the notes, maybe chant it, maybe sing it in staccato, maybe chant it in staccato either. I don't know why I love you like I do, right? And you're going to hear, I don't know, what. And eventually you're going to practice it enough to where everybody starts doing it at the same time. And it's a fun thing to do too. So, whenever you can introduce that little bit of fun flavor and a fun exercise to get people excited, motivated again, please use it. And the really weird ones are the best ones. The staccato thing is a great one to use for that. Any questions or anything to add to that? You see the next phrase? This is the harsh reality of the scenario. This is the harsh reality of it, y'all. Okay, if you've gone through all the other stuff and you've done it and they get it, they seem to get it, and then you go back and you put it into play, something goes, pardon my French, to hell in a handbasket. You're not sure why. What the heck just happened, right? Maybe it's time to turn the mirror. What am I doing as a director? Am I being clear enough? One of the biggest things that I see, and we're going to get into this after this topic, is people direct and mouth the words at the same time. So we're going to get into that. But before we do, let's talk about phantom hand, because this is the other problem that we see. So the biggest problem is phantom hand. The second biggest problem is mouthing words. Let me show you. Let me show you what phantom hand looks like. And hold on, before we start that, let me share sound. You're welcome. Let's skip through this just a little bit. I love that my left hand. By the way, this is probably the shortest set ever done on a Southeastern District contest. I think the entire set was like 2 minutes long. So you notice my left hand has a heavy all the time. What I call phantom hand. And I see many directors do this. When you do that, you invalidate this hand. This is a tool. This is something you can use to get somebody else to do something. But if you're using it all the time and everything you do, it becomes invalidated. People don't listen to it. People don't pay attention to it because it's just doing the same thing that this hand's doing, right? So if you adjust it and you get this hand, you get one focal point. Then it becomes more powerful. But if I'm doing this all the time, then when I do this, it doesn't make any sense, right? People don't understand what that is. You can also use this as a tool for volume when you get to that point, right? So maybe, volume can be spoken in how big your pattern is. Getting that can get people excited and make them louder. Making your direction can be more passionate. You can start directing and leading a little bit with the shoulder. If you do that all the time, again, what am I doing? How am I doing it? Am I doing it all the time? If you are, then it's not special. It doesn't become a special moment. It means that you're working out of habit, and they are going to sing out of habit and not sing for a specific color or sing with a specific feeling that you might want them to have at that point in time. The other thing you can use this for, again, is volume. So as you're directing, you can give me more, or you can direct and then turn the volume knob up or turn the volume knob down, right? So all of that takes control. So this comes down to what I was talking about earlier, the Venn diagram of body, mind, and control, right? So you've got to be one with your body, understand how the body works, understand the technology and all that stuff, understand technically what we're doing. Okay, then you've got the control of your body that you have to think about too. You have to be able to function with this hand and this hand independently. And I have some tools that I'll make sure that you guys get. I'm still putting that packet together. I meant to have that pack put together and distributed to you guys beforehand, but I'll make sure that you guys get that afterwards. But I'm going to call this it's a director's, not a training kit, but a director's survival kit is what I'm going to call it. But it's got tools to help teach you how to gain independence with both of those hands, because that's extremely important. If you're giving the same message with both hands all the time, this hand becomes invalid, and it's a powerful tool. Use it, but use it wisely. So that's phantom hand. And then this is just so that y'all can see the difference. This was several years later. Migrated to doing one of these.
barely hear what you're saying.
Cool. Can you hear me now? Okay, cool. So you'll see this hand, for the most part, is now staying down here. Every now and then I'll bring it up for a breath. That's something that my chorus is having some issues with, so we're working on it. But it has way more reason for existing than it did before. Right? So that's phantom hand before. It still exists, not quite as hard as it used to. So it's something that if you don't train yourself and you're not working on it, it's taken me, I don't know how many years I've been working on it to get to where I am today, to get to that. So if that's a problem you have, start working on it today. And if you're hardcore about it, you're going to advance way faster than I am. I've been kind of lackadaisical about it, but I know it's a problem that I got to deal with. But I've also got a bunch of other irons in the fire that I'm trying to take care of too. So so that's phantom hand. Let's talk about mouthing. Any comments about phantom hand or removing the elements or anything like that before we get into mouthing words? Cool. Mouthing words, it's pretty simple. It's the same thing. You have two different points of focus. If you mouth words when you're directing, right? I mean, my mouth is not anywhere close to what my hands are doing. But so which one are they going to listen to? Which one do they want to know, right? Which one do you want to be the deciding factor? Because some of them are going to watch this and some of them are going to watch this. So if you're giving them 2 points of focus all the time, stop giving them 2 points of focus. One or the other. You can drop your hand and you can mouth the words just fine. Or close your mouth and let this do the talking. And let me tell you what happens when you do that. Your time, your mental time, becomes free. And that is liberating. When you're standing up there right now, you mouth words and you're thinking about what you're directing, and it's a lot going on in your brain. When you shut the mouth and you stop focusing on that, let them own that. Your chorus is smart enough and independent enough to do that. Let them own it. All you have to do, and then you can think. And you start thinking, and then you're like, oh, I never noticed that, because you're busy doing this and focusing on trying to keep this in sync with your hand as well. So it not only helps you as a director to stop it, but also helps them not get the wrong sync. Does that make sense? Cool. Any questions or comments around that? Yep, closing your mouth allows you to listen more. Small change with a big reward. And it's a big reward for both parties, not just one. So now we're going to get into less vocal pedagogy, less all of that stuff, and more around what we're doing as directors, the choices that we're making, and how do we solve some problems. For instance, finding traps in our music. It was brought to this group that sometimes it's hard finding where the traps are in your music. And it's very difficult. And if you're not, what I like to do is I will grab a piece of music and I'll look it over first and I'll read through it. And I don't know every single chord that's in the song. I'm also dyslexic, so it makes things a lot of fun when you're trying to read music and you're reading bass clef and treble clef all the time. And I flip all that stuff around. So it's like where I think an F is, it's really an E, all that stuff. So it gets a little difficult for me. So what I like to do is I read through it as best as I can first, and then I'll go grab the learning track, or I'll get learning tracks made and I'll put those on and I'll listen. And the things that you're listening for are like where you have ascending and descending melody lines, just things that are super simple that people are going to take for granted, right? When you have an ascending melody line, you want to take bigger steps on the way up. Generally, you want to think bigger steps on the way up, and on the way down, smaller steps, right? And that's just in general as you go up and down the scale. So you stop or don't accidentally start losing that pitch. So it's a little bit of a mental game, but you're not really physically doing anything different. You're just thinking that the steps are a little bit higher or a little bit lower, and you end up shortchanging on each side, and it adjusts properly. And typically if it's a melodic line, which is typically where we see something like this, unless it's a harmony driven part, Bright Was the Night might fit into that. Yeah, da, da, da. Somewhere Over the Rainbow is another good example. So Somewhere Over the Rainbow has a big octave jump. Somewhere, right, boop, bah, right off the beginning, right? That can be challenging for leads. So when you get to those moments, make sure they're practicing their scale exercises. Make sure that when they hit the parts that are higher in their tessitura, that they are exercising good posture. Make sure that go back and look at all the technical stuff. This is why I brought it up at the beginning, because if they're having a hard time hitting this pitch, they're having a hard time hitting that note, odds are it's a mechanical problem. Odds are they're not standing right. Odds are there's tension in their voice. It's not that they're not singing the right note. They're singing the right note. They're physiologically doing the right thing to sing the right note, but they physiologically also have something that's impeding the sound that makes it sound flatter on the other side. That could be slowing the sound, or slowing the pathway of air out of the mouth down. Again, all we're talking about is vibrations in air. If you slow down the vibration of air, what are you doing? You're manipulating the hertz frequency, right? So what we're doing is get all of that out of the way so that you hear a pure 440 if you're singing an A. Make sense? Cool. Scale exercises help. Are they maintaining proper posture? And the other technical issues that we discussed earlier that are happening all up in here. So all of the tensiony things. So you're going to want to look at that. But again, ascending lead lines, ascending melodic lines, descending melodic lines, that also follows the harmony parts if it's harmony driven song. Big octave jumps, things like that are traps. Really, it's going to come down to how well you know your chorus. And you know your chorus's pitfalls. You know the singers of your chorus. You know what, like I know that my chorus typically cannot sing very high above a G. So I'm not going to go find a piece of music that's going to have, a large amount of G's in them. They may be able to sing one, maybe two, without real strain or without real difficulty. But I just try to keep an eye on that, just to make sure that I'm choosing music that fits within their wheelhouse. And we get into that as well. There was mention about key changes in the emails that came back from you guys. How do you identify key changes, and how do you work through those? Well, my first question is, who has a leading tone? Before you get into a key change. The other question I have is look at the new key signature and the new keys note and the new measure. Who has that in the previous measures? So I'm going to bring, I've got an example here that I'm going to bring up. So this is 5 bars of A Dream Is a Wish Your Heart Makes that my course sang quite a while back. I want to say it was 2016-ish. And this is Adam Scott's arrangement. Thank you, Adam, for letting me borrow these 5 bars and put them in this class. I really appreciate it. So the key change is here. We're modulating from B flat, right? B flat to B. And so what I do is I'm saying, okay, if we're going to B, who has B in the previous? Who has the the keynote in the next measures over here? Mainly, the biggest problem we had was our leads could not find this A note. And this note right here is crucial for the melody. It's right on the melody. So the biggest question I had was, if you see this key change actually starts the previous measure. It doesn't start on measure 41. It starts in measure 40. And as a matter of fact, if you want to look at measure 40 in itself as already being in the new key, that's the way I look at these things. So then I go back even more than one measure. So you go back and you look at these chords back here. What are these chords? When they get to this chord, what does it resolve to? And most importantly, who's got the note? What is this note? This isn't, what is this, F sharp, right? Am I reading that right? Okay. Who has F sharp previously to that? And where's an anchor point for them? Right here at the baritones. So what I do is, when we got to this section of the song, I told my leads, I need you to pay attention to the baritone line here, because that's your first note. That's your first note of the new key. And it happens literally the note before you sing. And I've approached almost every key change with this now. Even in the quartet, I'm like, oh, who's got this note beforehand? Ah, okay, it's Dusty. That explains why it's off. Love you, Dusty. I'm kidding. But anyway, if you go back to the previous two measures, you've got the baritone is singing an F, all of a sudden sings an F sharp. F sharp is your lead's first note. So have your leads listen to the baritones. Make sure the baritones are singing the right note and they're singing it loud enough. Loud being not forceful, loud being making sure they're using proper posture, all that stuff. Loud is not always better, but they got to be heard. And that's how they will execute this key change and execute it with success. So find somebody who's got the note for the melody, or whichever part is supposed to be the dominating voice part in the next measure, and see if you can replicate that. Does anybody else want to add to that? Cool. Excellent. This method does work most of the time, but it doesn't work for everything. There are some key changes that just come out of nowhere. There's no way to really adjust to the modulation. And those are typically when, you know, they're fairly simple. Those key changes aren't typically very difficult to work through. So it's the ones that are just like, bang, bang, here we are on the new key. So those are pretty easy to hear, but the ones that are very difficult, if you're struggling with it, see if you can find where do is the previous set of measures. Cool. Duet, duet, duet. When in doubt, start taking and removing the elements again. So have different voice parts duet, and you'll find a winning combination. So you're going to end up removing at some point one of the parts that are causing the problem. And you're going to, so for instance, I start removing, and I'll go back to lead, bass, duet. And if they can't lead, bass, duet through it, then I go, okay, cut out the basses, leads only. Oh, they're perfect. Okay, basses. That might be the problem. Maybe we have 3 or 4 basses singing the wrong bass note, right? So it could be that, and maybe your leads are getting the wrong note from that. So when in doubt, start removing the elements, start duetting, and choose all kinds of different duets. Start with your lead bass, take your basses out, replace them with your baritones, replace your leads with your baritones and have baritone bass. So go through them all until you find the winning combination where it clicks for people. And it may click for you before them, and you may come up with a tool on the spot and go, I know why, because I just heard this and I didn't hear that before. And odds are that's the reason why you're having a key change problem, because they're not hearing that either. Cool. Duet the heck out of it until you find the right combination that clicks with your singers. Lead bass first, follows, fails, remove other elements. Those elements could be rhythms, could be your interp that might be making some things go a little wonky for a minute. So pull that out. Pull the words out, then pull voice parts one by one out until you get the winning combination again. Cool. Know your chorus. So I mentioned this before. It is very important for you to know not only you got to know your chorus's strengths, and you got to know your chorus's weaknesses, because at the end of the day, you're the person that's going to have to guide your chorus into the right music choices, guide your chorus into improvement. They're looking to you for that. They're not looking for anybody else on the music team to do that. You are there for a reason, and this is your purpose. Your purpose is to know your chapter, know your chorus, know the members of your chorus, be motivational, make them enthusiastic, and we'll get into how here in a few minutes, and identify their weaknesses and their strengths, and then work on those. Play to your strengths and improve your weaknesses. One of the ways that you can do that is, what do they love singing about? You know, these are things that people don't typically ask themselves. You know, what do my members like to sing? So I'm gonna stop for a minute because I've been talking for a hot minute. It's been about 18 or I don't know how many minutes it's really been. But this is a point where we need to start having more discussion. So first, I'm gonna put some people on the spot. Mark, what are your chorus's strengths and weaknesses, and what do they love singing about?
They love singing songs that are familiar to them. That's one of the things I've found. They like singing and do well at kind of swingy or not real high paced, up tunes, but they like Being With You. They like Peg of My Heart. They like, and those are songs that we just kind of hit, kind of a wheelhouse in right there that's done real well. They do not like some of the songs that 30 years of me listening to Barbershop love.
Mhm.
And one of the things I really had to figure out was, for me, how long in the process do you go before you got to pull the plug on something, without just, forcing it down them and making them not want to sing it, and me as the director getting frustrated because I'm not getting anywhere week to week. And that was the thing. And so I think I've made better choices in the last couple of years, because we did really well on this one song at contest and the guys really loved it. It took them a little while to get into it, but once the chords started flourishing and all this, they could hear the beauty in it and the wonderful Barbershop in it. They liked it. They really did. But I found that on those songs that maybe are not quite as immediate in the message,
Mhm.
it takes they got to be a little patient with it, but you can't let it go too far. So sorry, I'm being wordy there, but it just took me a long time. It took me a little while to say, what are the right songs that I think the guys are going to say that they're going to give a chance to be successful on. And even if it takes just a little bit longer, but and not real complex ones. That was the big thing. The guys in the chorus, I don't know if it's a weakness or just a patience thing, but I know we can sing some songs that are a little bit more complex. And I brought out the Ray Stevens song, Have a Little Talk with Myself.
Yeah.
And that's a fun song, but man, it's just ba 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 ba, and it's like a trust in themselves type thing, that they can do it, and they just don't give themselves the chance to do it. I think so. I don't really focus on songs like that as much, because I think they look at it and they go, oh my God, well, this is going to take forever. And we're going to, so I mean, that's legit stuff with my guys. So.
Absolutely. Sharing a little bit about my course, my guys, they are, and we're an all male course, so that's why I say my guys. They are, they're weekend singers and they're Tuesday singers. They don't go home and practice a whole bunch. I know that. They know that. I will never get them to do that. Some people have that made up in their mind that I'm an old singer, I'm not going to get any better, right? Your job at that point is to motivate that person and to get them to think that they can. And they can improve. Everybody can improve. I can improve. You can improve. Nobody here is perfect, right? And nobody at least tries to be in our course, for sure. So I know my chorus is not going to go, they don't really care too much about contest. We go to participate to be at contest, and we go to participate. So people know that Memphis is still around. We're the very farthest out on our district. We're the very edge of our district, as far as you can get before you cross into the next district. So we hang our hat on that a little bit sometimes, but at the same time, knowing your chorus, knowing the chapter, knowing what they're good at, what they're weak at. My guys are not going to go out and sing Redhead. We did it one time, and it was when we were still a large chorus. We had about 70 guys at one point, and we did great with it. But we still have some dudes in our chapter that want to bring it back, and I'm like, dude, like, dude, really? Redhead? Like, do you know how hard of a song that is? Like, you want to talk about you guys can't sing G's and then you guys want to go sing A flats? No, man. Like, that ain't gonna happen. So anyway, so there's those conversations that you have to have, and we'll get into a little bit more of that in the next segment. Vern, how about you? Tell me a little bit more about your chorus and these same three questions.
Yeah, the North Georgia Barbershop Singers. One of the big gripes that I have with them, and I say gripes, is a lot of the guys really don't want to give up that music. They've got to hold the damn piece of paper, and that's a real frustration for me. So we're trying to figure out how to encourage that and not come across as an rectal orifice. There are not a great deal. By and large, we are not really talented singers. A good many leaners, and probably I would say maybe the section leaders and one or two others are, shall we say, competent singers. So again, I think I mentioned this in the email that I sent to you, how to strive for excellence without being overbearing about it. We'll never be vocal majority, that kind of thing. And how to understand that we can have a lot of fun and still improve, but not beat ourselves up too much because we're not the vocal majority, that sort of thing.
Yep. And so Vern, I will challenge you to, well, first of all, let me ask you this. What is the most proud moment you have had with them as their director so far? What was the proudest moment you can think of where you're like, pardon my French, hot damn, that was a good night? What happened?
Yeah. I think probably it wasn't when I was in front of them, but that we were able to do well the last time we went to contest. Our director had just taken a new job, and so the 3 months before contest, he was out of town, and so it was up to me to try to get things as well as we could, and then he did it at the contest.
Mhm.
And the fact that we were able to do as well as we did was a source of pride to me, that I was able to get things at least well enough along that the pro could come in and make it execute well.
Let me tell you a little bit about that model. I got to sing with the vocal majority a couple times. I used to fly back and forth to Dallas for some work stuff. So I attended one of their rehearsals, and I was flabbergasted because I expected to see Jim Clancy there almost the entire time. I did not see Jim Clancy there, but for about the last 15 to 20 minutes of the actual rehearsal. So what was happening the entire time was you had Jeff Oxley standing out front. Guys, make sure you're doing this, blah, blah, blah. You had this other guy over here, blah, 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 blah. And you had these two dudes coaching the course the entire time. And then they stepped aside when Jim Clancy got here. If you've ever watched him direct, he's just very, I mean, it's amazing. Not always clear in instruction, but he has the conversations, and that course knows him, and he knows them or knew them at the time because he was directing them at the time. So where I'm getting at is, Vern, you were a big part of that, and you discount yourself a lot. I see that, I hear it. It's in your language. It's how you talk about your chapter. You discount yourself a whole lot. Don't. Don't. You did that. You were a part of that. And if it wasn't for you, would they have succeeded? Maybe, maybe not. I highly doubt it. I think you were a huge part of that. So I say that to give you some motivation and to make you realize you aren't as bad as you say you are, and your chorus isn't as bad as you think they are. And I use bad as a generalized term. Bad is not bad. It's just an opinion. In this case, I would challenge you to go back with as much enthusiasm as you can and challenge them back. And here's what I found out about my chorus, because I used to just kind of, when I first picked up the reins, I was so gung ho, and then there was a point in time, and I'm being very honest, where I mailed it in. There was a point in time where I lost the return on investment that Mark was talking about earlier. As a director, we have a return on investment. We have this ROI we look for and we expect, and we want our singers to bring it to the table. And when we don't get that ROI, we feel gypped as a director, right? Well, whose fault is that? My fault, right? At the end of the day, it was me. It was me because I was causing some of the feeling and I was making my chorus do something they didn't want to do, right? So I had to take a step back. And I did. I took a step back from the chorus for a while. They had some dude come in and he directed us for a little bit, and then he left, and then I came back. And that was a lot of why. We just had a understanding of what we really wanted. I wanted something different than what the chorus was willing to do. So we had to have a meeting of the minds, and I frankly had to step off my mental high horse for a minute and go, okay, I want this awesome chorus. I want, our version of, one of these really, really awesome choruses, right? But that's not those aren't necessarily the singers that I have right now. And ultimately I had to say, well, what can I do for them? That was the difference, is the shift of, who are you doing this for? Are you doing it for you, Vern? Or are you doing it for them? And ultimately you're going to find that the more you do for them and the less it is about you, the more they are going to get out of it, and the more they're going to want to come back. So start adjusting a little bit to see if you can get into that same wheelhouse that they're in. And again, I was here, and so I had to come here. I feel like it's opposite for you. I think you don't feel like you have skills, and I think I would challenge you to, you have skills. You have these skills because you've used them and it was successful. And so I encourage you to do this and realize, I need to help these people, and I have the talent and the skills to do it. The fact that you're sitting here in this class learning this stuff tells me that you care. And take all of this energy, take all of this stuff, take it back with you, and excitedly share it with them, because that's what's really going to get them moving forward. When they see you learning and they see you moving forward and adapting and getting better, it makes them excited, because then they're going to go, oh, we got a really good director, right? Oh, we got to do great, right? You get into that kind of a feel. So Ben, we haven't hit you yet. What, and I know we got 4 minutes and 40 seconds, so we're like, on a quick, like 1, 2, what do you got for these 3?
One of the interesting strengths that Stone Mountain has that I haven't experienced at other places I've directed is that the bass section is incredibly powerful. Like, I don't know why it's like that. It just happens to be that way. And I love it. And so that's useful. I love the fact of that. In my the other course that I'm directing now, Big Chicken, I would say, like, their biggest advantage right now is that the feeling of family in that group is extremely strong. They've been through a lot over the years, and the guys who are still there, which it's fewer every year, of course, but the guys who are still there really care about each other, to the point where, as a new member a couple of years ago, it made me uncomfortable, and like, not because I felt excluded, but they were so trying to include me in everything, and so enthusiastic about that I was like, maybe we don't need to be best friends just yet. But yeah, I love that about them. As far as weaknesses, like on the technical side of things, in both choruses, I need I need to work with my lead sections. I would say both choruses, probably the lead section is the weakest of the sections, and that's kind of a problem in our barbershop style. You know, I don't, when I listen to them, I don't hear the melody and stuff like that. I mean, I have ideas for how to address that with both groups, but number one would probably be recruiting.
Well,
But
this is a perfect segue. I mean, this is a perfect example of why I'm telling you guys to look at this, because you know your weakness, right?
yeah,
So now you can choose music based around that, right? So play.
right.
So now you can say, okay, well, I may have a weak lead section, but I have this awesome harmony section, right, or harmony parts. So you pick a harmonically driven tune.
Yeah. Well, and I definitely think about it in repertoire selection, because people will suggest something and I'm like, oh, well, like the whole second verse of that is got back time, and we can't do back time in Stone Mountain right now because the lead section will just fall apart if they don't have other people singing the words with them, you know. And so I do think about those sorts of things with it and the ranges and all of that. Yeah. But yeah, that's a good point. There's a lot. There's so much. It's like, it's so easy to, when you're looking at repertoire, to think just about, like, you know, what's our high note or whatever, but there's a lot more to it. And I love your question of what do they love singing about, because that's a question you don't think about very much, especially in terms of a chorus, because it's like, well, they sing what we put in front of them. But just like Mark was saying, you know, you put in front of them something that they don't buy into, it just doesn't work.
Well, my chorus loves singing about love tunes.
Yeah.
So if I find a really good juicy love tune, love letter straight from your heart, right? My guys are gonna eat it up. So, but that's what I do, is I go, okay, well, what do they really love and what do they really hate singing about? Like, if they hate singing about it, I'm not going to bring it. And frankly, we've had a couple members bring some music to the music team, and I knew that the rest of the chorus was going to absolutely hate it. And I was like, we've had this discussion before. They're not going to sing that, and I'm not going to let you put that out there. We're not going to sing that. And we'll get into how to manage that kind of a conversation here in just a few minutes.
Yeah. I've got two choruses that both like comedy songs, which is kind of odd. But yeah, both Stone Mountain and Big Chicken love funny music.
So I put C and D here. I use the word singing about for a reason, because we're talking about themes. What themes do they love? Because if you can't get them married on the theme, Mark, this is going to hit your category. They're not going to perform it. Right? If they don't feel it, they're not going to perform it. Cool. We got 8 seconds. So I'll see you in the break hall. All right. And we are back. Let me,
Hey, DC, I'm going to have to bail at 4:30 or just
Okay.
right after that. So just if you see me leave. That's what I
cool, no
gotta do.
problem. And I thank you for joining the class, by the way. So again, thank you guys. I don't know if we're gonna all end up making it to the closing. We'll see. I think we will. Like I said, I jam-packed so much data in this. So I think we can kind of rush through a couple of these pieces and get you guys out of here on time. I'm going to share my screen again. Screen one, ta-da-da. You should see the one that says Finding Traps. Cool. All right, so everyone has an opinion on which song they want to sing. So keep an eye on the recurring themes that get your course excited. We're moving into song choice. I went ahead and pre-populated everything there. Choose music that's challenging but not impossible for them. You want them to struggle with it just a little bit. Anytime there's a phrase that's going around. Anytime you're comfortable and you get comfortable, then you're not learning. When you're on the edge of uncomfortableness because you've got so much coming at you and you're not quite sure, you're going to grab something from that and you're going to learn from it. So getting people to the edge of their comfort zone is where you want people to be. So you don't want a tune that's going to completely destroy their motivation, but you want a tune that's going to be difficult but achievable. So you hold the keys to that kingdom. You have the knowledge to make those decisions because you know your chorus, you know their strengths, you know their weaknesses, you know what they love, you know what they hate. So you are being dependent on to pick that music. Make sense? The biggest thing is sometimes you got to be the bad guy. And we talked about this before. I had a gentleman bring Redhead to my chorus, and we'd sung it before. It was great. I loved it, but that's not who we are anymore. And that's the conversation I had to have with the guy. And that gets difficult because if you aren't working on those individual relationships with the members in your chorus, then when it comes to the point where you have to have this conversation, it may come off wrong. You may come off as, a stuck-up guy or something, whatever. So understanding how your relationship is with the people in your chorus is definitely something you have to put your finger on. You got to think about the pulse. You got to do one of these things and go, am I in line with the rest of the chapter? And do we have a synchronicity of mental space? Like, do we both agree on things? And how is my relationship being reflected upon everybody else? So you've got to pay attention to that to some extent. That also means that you have to curb your language when you're in front of your chorus, depending on the people that are in front of you. So all this really is fostering healthy boundaries with your board and your music team. At the end of the day, you are the motivational, inspirational music educator for your chorus. This is you, Vern. I'm talking to you. You are. Much like judging, you're not always there to be nice to people. It's not your prerogative to be bad either, but you are there. Like for me, I was there to judge and judge fairly. Not everyone is happy at the results, such as the same with being a chorus director, right? So I say that to say, no one hold them, no one fold them. Do you fight to keep the tune you really like to direct when the rest of the chorus hates it, Mark? Or it might be time to give it up. Likewise, if the group wants to sing a song that's too difficult for them at their skill level, you may need to be the voice of reason in the room. Especially if the rest of the music team's on board. Now, if the rest of the music team's like, yeah, it sounds great, which has been my experience in the past, I'm like, sometimes I can't be the bad guy and say no, right? Sometimes I just gotta deal with it, let them try it. And when they realize how difficult it really is, and when they get to that A and they beat their head up against the wall on it, and then I go, guys, are you guys really having fun? Is this what we want to do as a chapter? Then by all means, you can have this conversation with them, right? But you also have to allow them, if they're that passionate about the song, you have to allow them to do it. You have to allow them to try it. If they don't, if they fail after that, then you can say, all right, well, we tried that. Let's try something different. Then you have an opportunity to introduce new music. Because then you can say, oh, well, we guys, come on. And then everybody else will be like, oh, yeah, I guess you're right. And then you can go, well, how about this one instead? And again, if you're choosing it in the theme that they love, right, they're going to eat it up. So that's in your court. You have choice over that. As we'll discuss later on, your words matter too. The way you handle your words during this difficult deliberation has an effect. So conduct yourself accordingly when your tempers get raised. Sometimes those conversations are, and you want to go, you, right? You can't do that. You have to stay the calm, cool, collected person in the room. They're going to get mad. You might get mad. You might have to be the person in the room to go, we need 10. Everybody take 10. Let's go relax. Let's go chill out. Let's go throw a ball against a wall, something. And so when if you ever are presented with that scenario, be smart about it. At the end of the day, you cannot be the motivational guy if everyone in the room is angry at you. It's not going to work. You got to be the guy that the chorus loves. That's it. That's all your job is to make people love you and educate them.
ADC.
Yeah.
Just looking back up at Know Your Chorus too. Sometimes you get in there and everybody had a rough day, or everybody, their heads are somewhere else, or there's a current event going on and everybody's thinking about whatever it is. And I've had those where you have just a rehearsal that's just like awesome the week before, and then you get up there the next week and you think, man, this is gonna be, man, look, we've been on a roll, and everybody's just mailing it in. And I've had to take timeouts a couple times where I say, all right, we need to do something. Everybody needs to go circle the plant that's sitting over. I'll pull something, I'll do something like totally off the wall, or as simple as just get them off the risers.
Mhm.
That's and we do the spread formation too, and we have lots of room, and it's really been an invigorating thing. The guys love it, but sometimes you just see that they're in just they're not, the
You're not
focus
there.
isn't there. And yeah, I know, and it's just
Mhm.
like, boy, I was like, what the heck's going on? So I even had them sing a song where I said, come off the risers, and I want you to approach me during the song when you find a real important part of the song that you really want me to know. It means a lot to you. And guys were just coming up to me at different, it's just, and a lot of times everybody said, this is a real, and everybody stepped forward. And then, it was just this cool thing. And all of a sudden you just saw eyes lighting up, and it was just something new. I just gave them something like off the wall, and it just kind of invigorated them. So it's kind of like the know that your chorus is also know when they're tired, know when they're bored. And maybe that glassy eyedness too is not just them.
Right.
Maybe, you think you're doing everything just wonderful too. And you're on your back feet a little bit,
Mhm.
and it's
Right.
coming across. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's
Again,
just, don't be afraid to try something just kind of weird and fun, and the guys have a lot of fun with that.
absolutely. I couldn't agree more. One of the things that I used to do, and here's a technique you can use. And Mark, this might get the chorus out of that moment. I tried this for a while with my chorus, and it worked great. The problem that I have is my chorus dudes are kind of old, so moving around is a little difficult for them. But what we did for quite a while was, and this is when we were getting better again, I had the chorus come off the risers, and we never, ever stepped foot on the risers unless we were going to perform it. So what we did was we rehearsed everywhere else in our building. We circled up in a big circle. I got groups over here. I did an advanced like quartet standing method with the chorus, and I stood in the middle and I'm doing this. I mean, we tried all kinds of different things, and those are great ways to get people out of the norm. And at the end of the day, there's some rehearsals you just go in there and nothing you do is going to make a difference, right? When you get to that point, I've had to do this before. I've actually stopped what we were doing, and I was like, guys, is everything all right? Like, just call them on it, and then go, you know, for us, what it was we kept working the set, 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 and over time they got bored of that. They just didn't want to do it anymore. So they came in the next rehearsal, and they're like, "I'm gonna run more sets, okay?" And so we ran the first set, and I realized everybody was doing exactly what you said. They were just mailing that in, not really trying, not really working at it. It wasn't fun for me. It wasn't fun for them. So at the end, we rehearsed for, I don't know, about 30 minutes or so, maybe to an hour, and I realized it just wasn't going to happen. So I stopped the rehearsal, and I looked at everybody and I was like, "Let's do something fun. What do y'all want to do? How about a quartet sing off?" And we literally I pulled everybody off the risers. We completely changed and transformed that night. Have what I would suggest is have a backup plan. Talk with your chorus manager, sit down with him or her, figure out what is my plan B in the event we have one of these nights, right? Have something in your back pocket that you can scrap maybe the night and go, you know what, screw it, it's not working. Everybody, let's just have some fun. We're going to do this. We're going to go to plan B. Plan B could be, it just could be a night of camaraderie and singing and getting together in quartets and just having a good time. That sometimes shakes out, and then the next rehearsal they come back and they're all energized and ready to go again. Oh, maybe we're going to do stuff like that. And then if they eat it up, then you fold that into your program a little bit at a time, right? So those are things to discuss as with your leadership team, and make sure you have that plan B and even a plan C if you need it. So that's just words of wisdom. And thank you for that, Mark. That was great. Anybody else want to mention anything? Any great stories about that? Cool. We're going to keep trucking. There was some mention about difficult to tune chords. Some chords are really difficult. Half diminished chord is particularly strange. We're going to run over just a few of these. It's not a whole bunch. I'm going to share sound, make sure that works. Can you guys still hear me? Cool. All right. Half diminished chord. This is what it sounds like. So the chord, the penultimate chord, that one is, the half diminished chord is meant to introduce tension, along with a fully diminished chord. They're both tension builders. And you typically have a resolving chord right after that. In this case, 7, 1. Right, going from scale 3, 7, 2, 1. So it's resolving chord. In this case, this is the way it's used. Amen. Right, so it's the barbershop amen chord, if you want to think about it that way. So that's what it sounds like. How do you tune it? What's it used for? It's used to create tension. Tune the minor triad. Work on that. Focus on that. That triad's hard. It's okay. Fully diminished chords. And I know I'm running through these. We'll have them later. What it sounds like. Here we go. Right? Massively different. It's resolving down, up. So I like to call them uh-oh chords, because they sound like It's like what you would hear in Jaws, or what you would hear in it's like an accordion. That they're uh-oh chords. So but they're a little bit difficult to tune. Fully diminished chords have 2 tritones in them, which make them really, really difficult to tune. So what do? At the end of the day, you don't. Don't focus on tuning them. What you should do, trust the note, know the note and trust it. It will never feel in tune. Know the note and trust it. Equal balance for all 4 notes across the entire ensemble. Any more on one side, any more on the other, it's going to sound out of balance. It's going to sound out of whack and out of tune. So that the secret here is knowing your notes, singing everything in perfect balance for these 4 notes. And then that's it. That's all you got to worry about it. Instant Message, my old quartet sang Muskrat Ramble, the intro to Gas House Gang's Muskrat Ramble. As a matter of fact, I'm going to play just the intro of that, because the whole thing is just half diminished and fully diminished.
Hey, hey, things are snapping, I say, what's a-happening? What goes? Who knows? Such a buzz there never was. It must be something mighty great. I can hardly wait. Come on and don't.
Right, first non-diminished chord was pretty much right there. So the whole bars before that is just all diminished. It's either half or fully diminished. It's really, really, really hard to tune. I was actually really surprised at how well the members of my quartet sang it, but they're used to singing really dissonant harmonies. Surprisingly, I was the problem in that quartet with where to sing and what to sing. And finally, I was like, okay, so I just have to think about my line here as being a lead line, and I just have to sing it and trust the notes and trust that everything will fall into place. And let me tell you, we smoked the intro of that every single time. It was perfect. So that's the secret to fully diminished and half diminished chords. I love this song, by the way. It's one of my favorites. Let's see, what else we got? We've got 9 chords. I love 9 chords. 9 chords are beautiful and they're awesome. We're going to talk about the add 9. The add 9 chord, here's what it sounds like. So this is Willow Weep for Me. And towards the end of the song, you'll hear the baritone, I believe it's the baritone, comes in with an add 9. And there's a difference between an add 9 and a dominant 9. And it's particularly in the way that the chord is well, where they're voiced and how the chord sounds. You'll hear the difference.
None will find me sighing and crying all alone. Weeping willow tree.
Here it comes. That one. it. Cool. And it's usually used for some kind of musical or melodical effect. In this case, they're using it in a bell chord to make it sound heavenly. It typically has a heavenly sound to it. A dominant ninth, as you can imagine, does not sound like it's a heavenly chord. It sounds a little bit different. It sounds more powerful. So basically, you've got a major triad and you got a perfect fifth in an add 9 chord. Mail in the 9. That's the secret to the add 9. You don't want a whole lot of 9. It should be present as a feature. It shouldn't be the meat and potatoes of the chord. And this is the difference between an add 9 and the dominant ninth and how you sing it. So the dominant ninth is a dominant ninth. The dominant ninth, you're going to want to smoke that sucker. I mean, it's going to be like, but you got to do it within reason. So you have to pay attention to where the bottom 3 or the other, where you are on the 9, you're going to be here, sandwiched in between 2 other voice parts. So you got to hear what volume are the other 2 voice parts that are creating that triad with you, or yeah, well, the other voice parts singing the triad, and where are they vocally in balance? Mainly the ones that you're sandwiched in between. You want to have the same, if not almost more volume than your 1/5 that you would have in this relationship. So sing it as if you were singing a 5 in loudness against a 1. Does that make sense? Cool. And this is what that sounds like. Let me get back here. Was that playing through? Did that play for y'all? Okay, it sounded weird over here.
Glory and honor, praise, adoration, now and forevermore be thine. Glory be thine forevermore, oh, now and forever.
Back in the last note. So that that was the dominant 9. Here we go. So it sounds more powerful. It's domineering. With the dominant ninth, you want it to be present. You don't want it to just hang back there and be mailed in, because you're going to lose it. You're not going to hear the 9 because the other 3 parts of the chord are going to be so strong. Make sense? And typically it's where it's placed. Cool. Questions around any of that?
What are you going to talk about a major 7th at all?
I was not.
I was just, my chorus is singing a couple songs that have a little bit of major 7th passing through, and just any tips on tuning those?
I like to hear the 7 on a major 7 chord. So I would lean into that just a little bit. Make sure your tenors are singing, or whoever's got the major 7, make sure they're singing the right note. They're going to want to sing a dominant 7 there. And your 5th, make sure it's a perfect 5th.
Okay.
Yeah. If your 5th is a little low, it's going to make that chord sound weird. Cool.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah. Let's see what else. Oh, break time. Yeah, that's where I thought break time was going to be. Nope. So mental discussions. We talked about that before a little bit. So leadership. Let's get into language. So we have. How many times have you heard these phrases? The language that we use makes a whole lot of difference in our rehearsals. So now we're getting into, as a leader, what am I doing and how am I doing it? The next section, this whole section is all about you. This is where this is where we are going to be the most critical about ourselves. And this is when we need to recognize in the rule set that I had that you need to recognize rule number 3. I have a tendency of holding myself to a crazy, insane litmus. I have this bar set for myself way up here all the time. And that becomes a little disparaging for me when I don't make my goal, right? Because I have my goal set too high. So I have to understand and have grace for myself when I fail. You're going to recognize I do some of these. The trick is understanding you have the power to change it, and don't beat yourself up too bad, because everybody is doing it. It's not just you. This is learned behavior. This is a learned thing that people have to learn to do because it's programmed in our society and the way that we are raised to do everything else opposite, right? So that includes empathy. That includes, just the way we speak in general. How many times do you have people in your life that speak on a negative bias? It happens quite often. I like to use an analogy for this. I imagine that people are machines, and I have a pocket of coins. I have a pocket of gold coins. When I come up to these people, I'm punching a gold coin in when I'm doing positive things, right? I'm giving them positive language, and I'm paying the machine. I'm paying the machine because at some point, I'm going to have to withdraw from the machine, right? If you have enough positive coins in the machine, you can afford to withdraw one here and there. If you withdraw a bunch, people aren't going to take that. They're not going to deal with that. If you just give them positive all the time, and you're not real with them, and you're not taking one out every now and then, they're going to call BS on you. So you have to balance the line of being real and honest, but also making sure you're holding people accountable, but also doing it in a good light. It's a lot of words. That's a lot to think about, but that's your role. You're the leader. You're the motivational inspirator for your chorus. You can't have that relationship with them if you have bad relationships with them. You got to have a good relationship with your chorus. That comes with changing your language. So don't take a breath there. How many times have we heard that? Don't breathe there. Breathe here. Don't forget that third chord in the last measure. Guys, you miss that all the time, right? Or leads, don't sing too loud here. So instead of using, or tenors, instead of giving them negative language to work off of, tell them what you want them to do, right? That's far more productive. People can typically remember only 3 things at a time in one given sentence. So when you stop the song and you're like, hey guys, we're going to work on, if you can make it one thing, that's great, but don't give them more than 3 things. Otherwise, it's going to go in one ear and out the other. And some people can't do more than 2. So you have to gauge that with your chorus. When are you getting results and when don't you get results? That's an experiment thing. You're going to, try, okay, well, maybe I gave them too much. Maybe I can just get them to focus on this one thing first. And then if they do well with that, then give them the second thing. And then maybe give them a third thing to work on. But if they're struggling still with number 2, then don't give them the third thing. Just keep it at 2. There's nothing wrong with that. Little tiny steps, a little bit at a time is what you're looking for. It's not going to be an overnight change. But changing some of your language to be more permissive instead of restrictive is definitely the key here. Let's see, what else did I, so the other thing is you are the person that your chapter picked. And Vern, I look at you and I say this, regardless of the cause, regardless of whether, whatever the scenario or situation is, you're the one that was picked to lead their musical program. If they weren't on board with that, you wouldn't be standing here right now. Right? This comes with pressure. It can be very intimidating, but fear not. They picked you for a reason. In their eyes, you're the wisest person, the one with the most musical knowledge that they believe can help them. So oftentimes we feel insufficient. There was a time that I stood in front of my chorus. I felt very out of place. And I approached a friend of mine about it because it was really bothering me really bad. And this person I highly respect. They've been directing for a number of years. They've got a musical degree. I mean, they've got all the things that I don't. I've got a barbershop education. I grew up in barbershop. I love barbershop. I went to Harmony University. I achieved all the goals there and did all the things that I needed to do. And I still felt insufficient standing in front of my chorus. So I brought this up to him. I said, man, every time I stand up in front of the chapter, I feel like I'm doing a disservice to them. Like they deserve better than me. How do I get past that feeling? And no joke, there was about 2 to 3 seconds, maybe a little bit longer of silence. And he goes, what makes you think I figured that out? I mean, seriously, I feel the same way almost every time I get out in front of my chorus. This is a dude that had been doing it for like, I don't know how many years. And I'm sitting here going, what? There's no way that he feels uncomfortable standing in front of this chorus. But he wouldn't BS me. He wouldn't tell me that for no reason. And so, I mean, he and I are really good friends. We're still good friends to this day. And that just rang home to me so true, that we are the ones that often shortchange ourselves the most. So we had a deeper discussion around who we are as people and supported each other over the next few years. And my confidence level grew. And while I still get a little nervous getting out in front of the chapter, I'm a whole lot more comfortable than I used to be. And you can see that with the phantom hand and all that stuff. I chalked that up eventually to be part of the problem, is I just wasn't comfortable standing in front of them. So you stand there so long, it's like sitting in an awkward silence in an interview. You know, if you've ever been through that, it's like there are some interviewers that will deadpan you for no reason, just to see how you react. So it's like, so Mr. Nash, what do you think about blah, 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 blah? And you're sitting here sweating and you're like, oh my God, well, what about blah, blah, blah? And then you just start rambling, right? And then it's an anxious mess. And that can happen if you're not comfortable being in awkward silence. So practice that. Practice those weird moments, practice being in awkward silence, practice working through being comfortable in front of your chorus. That is the key. A lot of that comes with knowledge, knowledge gain, knowledge transfer. A lot of that is just doing and getting out and doing it enough in front of people or in front of crowds enough. Let's see. Yeah, so bottom line, confidence will come in 2 ways: experience behind the wheel and learning and knowledge gain. The other thing is setting expectations of excellence for your chorus. If you don't feel like they're talented, right? This is some I've heard some people say this. If you don't feel like they're talented, then what are they talented at, right? So whenever somebody comes to you and says, I can't, then ask them, okay, well, what can you do? Because odds are they haven't thought about that. They're so worried about I can't that they put this mental block in front of themselves and they don't realize that they can do something, right? So what you say you can't do this, all right, well, how much of that can you do? And just do up to that. Just start there, and then we'll work on getting you to where you can do the rest of it. But do what you can and challenge them to can, not challenge them to can't. Make sense? I say make sense a lot. I realize that. So this is all about communication and management of your chorus. So positivity, you have a direct thread attached to your chorus, your mood, your words, your hands, your body, all of it has a direct effect on their attitude and their night. The types of body language we have, I have this brought up on the screen. So for instance, if I were to, what does that tell you? Which one am I using now? That's confusion, right? That doesn't make sense. Or it could be, typically when we collapse our body, it's a sign of inconfidence. There's a video I want to send you guys. This is from, I can't remember her name, but it's a TED Talk. And she talks about faking it till you make it. And it's talking about imposter syndrome. And this is specifically what I'm dealing with, and specifically what I'm talking about when I talk about getting in front of somebody and feeling like you don't have confidence in front of them. It's called imposter syndrome. What this is you lack the internal self-confidence to hold yourself to a standard in front of people. So you end up using that as a crutch to yourself. So, oh, I can't do that because I feel so weird. Like I could never get out in front and do that. Or you stand out in front of them and you're like, I should not be here. which is, surprisingly starting off in the judging circuit. That's what I thought. I started off in it and they throw you into a room with a bunch of people and you start talking tech. And so I'm standing there with Rob Mance, with Steve Scott, with all of these people that have more degrees than I do. What the hell do I have to offer this group? Well, it turns out I have a whole lot to offer the group. But I was shortchanging myself. I had imposter syndrome. It's the same thing. It happens to everyone. It happens to every director. When you stand out there and you're like, maybe I shouldn't be here tonight. Wrong. You should be there. Anyway, I'll send you that video because that video is huge. And the more, so one of the things that she talks about is if you're having a hard time dealing with imposter syndrome or just being comfortable in front of people or things in general, before you go and do the thing, go find a power pose. This could be standing like a superhero, but it's some big movement. It could be this, but stand there for 2 minutes, 2 whole minutes in this giant, big pulled out thing. And there's more science around why that works that they explain in the videos. But it's tricking your brain into feeling powerful and confident. And they found they ran a blind test and they took people and had them do these blind interviews and sent them into the interview. Before the interview, they had some people just sit there and cower and like change their body language before they went into the interview. And then they had some people do the big superhero thing before they went in. They found that out of the people that did this and did this beforehand, they got more calls back than the people that did this. And it has nothing to do with like they went in with a script or something. It had nothing to do with everything else other than just their normal way that they thought about themselves before they went in. So imposter syndrome is real. You have control over that. So your chorus is there to have a good time, but good time can mean many different things to many people. So what are the healthy ways to foster a good time? One, be productive. Oh, here's more body language. Yeah, anyway, be productive. People love being productive. Remember back to the best days that you may have had with your chorus rehearsals. It's not going to be the days where you messed around on the risers and people pop dirty jokes back and forth or anything like that. It's going to be the times when you really put your head down in your work, you got it done, everybody left and they felt like they got something done. And they came back excited to do that exact same thing the next week. Oftentimes, what I've found is they have that great week, and then they may come back next week and it'll be substandard to the week previous, right? Well, who's responsible for that, right? It's not just them, it's also partly you and your planning and your team. So make sure that your team is properly planning for those awesome positive events. Respect your members. Your words carry weight. Again, they chose you. Hefty, hefty, hefty weight. Choose them carefully, but be honest and true to who you are as a person. And Mark, I know you got to go here in just a couple minutes, so I'm going to give you this story before you go because this is really important. I did not realize what my impact was on the chorus until one day. I had a gentleman come up to me, and he pulled me aside after rehearsal, and he goes, "DC, I've got something I need to tell you." I said, "Okay, what's up?" He goes, "Before I came in today to rehearsal, I was sitting on the edge of my bed, and I reached underneath my bed and I pulled out my shoebox." He's like, "This isn't any ordinary shoebox." He goes, "I opened it up and I pulled out my revolver." He goes, "I took my revolver and I put it in my mouth. I was getting ready to pull the trigger. And I thought for a minute, if I do that, DC is going to miss me." And he said, "I took the revolver, I put it back in the box. I put the lid back on the box, stuffed it under, and I came to rehearsal." That, I had no idea. It floored me. I went home that night and I lost it. I absolutely lost it. I was an emotional wreck because I didn't realize, that I had that kind of influence over someone else to talk them out of committing suicide. I didn't even know. I had no idea. He was the happiest person on earth. I had zero idea. And he came and he said that to me, and it was such a huge impact. But it's because I had done these things. I changed the negative language. I had reached out and built those relationships, and I was there with them. Now, the thing is, he lived for several more years. He lived a healthy, well, I say a healthy life. He ended up passing a couple years ago from a heart attack. but it wasn't out of his own term. He actually brought some joy and some love into people's lives. And we're the better for having him here with us during that time, because he did help other people, and he helped other people through some of their mess too. And a lot of that was because of how I carried myself in the chapter. And I say that to tell y'all how important your role really is to the men on those risers or the women on those risers.
Yeah, I can't really touch that story, but I can tell you something that went the opposite way. And it just shows you how much people, if you develop a relationship with them, how much they care about you and respect you as a leader. A couple Christmases ago, before a Christmas show, it was a rehearsal before. We had a lot of people there. And I know a lot of the guys in the chorus, they've been longtime members. You know, we've got a strong core. And, you know, we all joke around with each other. And, you know, they're cutting at me and I'm cutting at them, and it's all fun. And, you know, you go home every day and you think that's just who we are. Well, I made a comment to somebody that I didn't even realize I made, and that it hit them the way that they did. And they did the same thing where they pulled after a rehearsal. And I've known this gentleman for years. He sings with the chorus, and we're great. But he said, I got to talk to you about something. And he was almost to tears. He was almost to tears because I had said something that jabbed a little bit deeper than what I intended. And I mean, I was flabbergasted. In fact, I was ashamed.
Mm-hmm.
When he was telling me this, I almost wanted to cry myself. I was embarrassed,
Mm-hmm.
because the last thing I'd want to do is for somebody to not walk back into that rehearsal the next week. I mean, I went home and I just went to bed. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
it was crazy. And so did I change fundamentally who I was or how I carried the rehearsals? No, but I really, really watched those words very closely every time. And so, just long story short, me and him, great relationship, you know. And you know what he said to me? He said, I wanted to be really mad, but I kept thinking of all the things that you have done for me and for others, that he says, can we just start over? And I said, yes. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was like, so that, to your point, that's how much we touch people's lives. And so what we say on either side of it,
Mm-hmm.
where the needle pegs, can have a big difference. So thank you for sharing. And I wanted to share that kind of on the opposite end a little bit, but yeah, that was a big learning for me.
Yeah. I've been there too. I said some things, and you're going to say some things again. I'm going to say something again. But we end up getting to a point. I've got that process now that sits and thinks before I say it. And it's not perfect. But when I do catch myself doing it, or I say something that's wrong, I stop immediately. And guys, I realize how that could be taken. That's not at all what I meant. You know, it's like, I will stop for a second. If I have to stop rehearsal and give everybody 5 minutes to recover from it, then that's what I'm going to do. Negativity. Let me tell you how hard it is to deal with negativity. As soon as you get somebody that makes a negative comment, it takes 10 minutes. 10 minutes for people to regain their mental capacity again. Because if they're jarred from it and it's negative and then it takes them 10 minutes to reset. So think about that. If you're doing that every couple of minutes in rehearsal, you never end up getting to a healthy mental state where they can learn, because they're too busy 15 seconds of raging all the time, right? So you got to think about that. Thank you for sharing that, Mark. I know that's very vulnerable.
Well, I got to go, guys. Nice to meet you all, and enjoyed the time with you. And DC, great session today. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it.
See you.
So language is a big thing. So the other thing that we hear is, before we sing this tune, everybody flip to measure 57. This key change is a real doozy, right? You're already setting them up for failure, right? So instead of doing that, start at maybe the end of the song and let them sing the tag a bunch, right? Then back it up a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, till you get to the key change. And then you start working that spot on the key change, right? Maybe they'll ace it the first time. You have no idea. But if you bring it to them and you say, this is a problem, then they're automatically going to go, I can't do it, right? So you end up inciting negativity in their mental state. So Yeah, it becomes very detracting to the performer for a variety of reasons. And the main one being it's just too much stuff to remember at the end. You know, the don'ts and the don'ts and the do's and the don'ts. What am I supposed to do and what am I supposed to not do? So I've changed my language to I want you to do this. Permissive language. Do this, do that. Let's, us, we, our. It's never me, it's never you, it's never anything that could be blaming. Because again, if you blame, as soon as somebody gets on the blame game, it's 15 seconds of rage. So curbing that, and it's a habitual thing that we've learned to do over time, because what do we hear in society? Don't sing so loud. You're being too loud, you know, when we're kids, or, you know, kids are meant to be heard, not just, you know, or kids are meant to be seen, not heard, you know, that kind of a mentality. All of this stuff has programmed us over time to work on this negative bias. So breaking ourselves out of that is something that's that I can't harp on it enough. So how do we change the behavior? Hit everything from a can-do perspective. Hey, leads, let's sing this with the same clarity and tone we used earlier. Anytime you can highlight something they did good, they're going to want to do it again because they got from their motivational guy, the guy that knows the most in the room about music, they heard him say, I did good. I'm going to do it again. So it actually works as a motivating tool. So when you go, hey, leads, the way you sang that passage just a second ago was gorgeous. When we sang measure 24 through 32 here, it was just amazing. Let's take the same feeling that we have there and apply it to measures 42 to 63, right? So you can, and then they have a relational point. Then they can go, oh, well, I already did it. I can do it again. Sure. You know, once you get it across their mind that they've already done it right, then all you got to do is convince them or con them even to wash, rinse, and repeat it. So it's a little bit of a manipulative game that you have to play with some of the dudes on your risers, or some of the people on your risers, but you'll figure that out as you start adjusting some of these ways. So all of that's great, but be wise about what you choose to work on. Better yet, at least have a rough draft in your head on what you want to accomplish in the next rehearsal. So focusing on that lesson and then reinforcing it by weaving in those concepts. So like at the very beginning of rehearsal, you know, if you're working on alignment, then be sure to fold that into your stuff. So for instance, if my focus was on a sagging tonal center, the warm-ups would consist of body awareness, posture alignment focus. I would take planned moments within the challenging moments of our music, typically when our ranges, when they're at the highest in their tessitura or at the really challenging parts of their music, and I'll have them use whatever tool I gave them at the beginning of rehearsal. Again, you're theming your rehearsal around the tools you're using at warm-up, right? So give them the tool, tell them to use the tool during that difficult spot so that they have success, and then they can make it permanent over time, right? So that's a way to use that as an example. This way they get the experience to experience the change, they experience it live, and then they get some practice where they can monitor it, where you can monitor it and adjust them if necessary. So when they do that, if you see anybody doing it wrong, again, provided you have this culture with your chorus, you can go, Ben, you're doing that the wrong way. If you can take your elbow and just move it just a little bit up more, so it's a little bit more centralized in your chest. You know, so you can then work with people individually, even on the riser, again, provided you've built that relationship with them. Keeping in mind, you can't always guarantee that the tools you'll give them, that they will use them when they leave the premises. So we don't have control over our singers' lives when they leave rehearsal. You know, we hope that they'll practice these things, but we don't always know if they will. So this gives you the opportunity to make sure that they're using it and doing it right. So for some of these people, this is the only rehearsal time they have. It's the only time they ever rehearse or practice. So make them do it while they're there. So I've got some tools here that I want to make sure that you guys get to mess around with and we get to play a little bit. This one's an ear training tool. I'll make sure that these are given out to you. This one actually is a website you go to, and it'll play just random chords. You tell it, you give it some criteria. You say, I want you to play major triads, minor chords, and 7 chords. And it'll go through and play them, and you've got to guess which chord it is. You can even adjust the inversions so that you can train your ear so when you hear it, bling, I know that that's a half diminished chord. And then you become knowledgeable at that point, because when you hear it in your music, you can go, aha, I think that's a half diminished chord. And then you know what to do with it, right? Because we've studied how to balance out a fully diminished or half diminished chord, things like that. There's another tool called Pink Trombone. It's this voice simulator here. I highly encourage you to play with that. This is what it looks like. It sounds weird. It looks weird. If you can imagine this, can you see my mouse on the screen? I'm not sure if you see my mouse. Okay, this part here is all of the open space for your oral, here. All this is all of the open oral space in the oropharyngeal space. What we're doing is, and in the mouth here, what we're doing is adjusting, if you can imagine the front side over here being the front side of your mouth here, and then this cavity here is all the cavernous space in here. And so just imagine somebody standing sideways. That's what we're doing, okay? So this is the cavity. So you've got your tongue that I'm adjusting down here. You have lips you can adjust. You have the soft palate you can raise back here. So all of these are playing with all of the little things here. How do we create vowels? We create vowels this way. Our tongues. So you're adjusting the tongue. Then you can even adjust the soft palate so that you're now taking sound into the nasal cavities. And what does that sound like? So I highly encourage you to play around with this so that you can understand the mechanics of what you're doing. And it doesn't make a lot of sense at first if you're not really in tune with what's happening, like as a whole. Like if you're not sure about what all these things are, just play with the tool for a little bit. Over time, it'll make sense. Over time, you'll go, oh, okay, so this is what happens when I raise my soft palate, or this is what happens when I put my tongue in this position. This simulation tool is for that, to teach people how, pedagogically, how we make sound. Let's see what else we got here. We got some music theory resources and BHS educational material. I highly recommend you go open it, read it, look at it. The BHS website has so much information there. Medium.com also has some music theory course information there, which I am linking here as well. Vern, that might be of interest to you. I know you mentioned that music theory, you're versed in it, but not well versed. So that might be a confidence point for you. Learning about music theory using these links will give you more confidence in what you're doing, and therefore you can bring that to the chorus with a different approach. Make sense? All right, what else we got here? I think we're just about at the end. Oh yes, training. Director's training involves a lot of watching and learning, learning. It's not as much doing. It's more watching and learning first. After you've watched and learned, then you do. One of the best ways that we do this is watch people better than you. You know, I mentioned it earlier. I'm a big Central Standard fan. Watch Rob's hands. We're just gonna watch a few minutes of this.
Strange, there was no warning what would be in store. For as in a story told from tales of lore.
Right, the reason for the left hand.
Strange and uninvited, love came in the door. Strange. this way
You pan out and just send it to his hand.
Strange dear, but true dear, when I'm close to you, dear, the stars fill the sky. So in love with you am I.
Cool. Did you see him do a lot of all this stuff or doing Phantom Hand a lot? No, he had purpose for every single movement. What was the purpose of that movement? Something that he worked out with them, right? Something he's probably repeated them a bunch. Or probably singing closer to the mask or adjusting or telling them where they should make sure they're making their music or sound. I'm not quite sure what the real reason is for that because I'm not standing in front of him and I can't quite see it. But I would ask him. So Rob Mance is a great person to watch. Justin Miller is a great person to watch as well. I have a couple of his videos here. By the way, these people have degrees in music and choral conducting. And this video is particularly great because it's focused on him most of the time. So you notice he turns to the people that have their, and he doesn't walk them through it, but he allows them to just be with the feeling of the song. And a lot of his movements are very even permissive when he directs. It's very from the core. He likes to direct from the core out all the time. And that has a huge impact because it makes people sing in a certain way. He doesn't direct up here all the time because directing up here all the time would have a negative effect to his chorus. So he keeps it relaxed, and the attitude he brings to the chorus, they're repeating back to him. This is how important body language is. Watch how they respond when he moves his body through the next few phrases. Pretty cool, huh? So we have all of these tools. How many recordings exist on the internet of people directing Barbershop? How many of those recordings are people that have more knowledge or more experience than you and have good hands and do well? There is a plethora of knowledge at your disposal. One more, because he's got a choral conductor's degree. This is Rasmus. I don't know how to really pronounce his last name. And this was in 2019, I think.
If you go away on this summer day, then you might as well take the sun away. All the birds have tuned the summer sky when our love was you.
Initially, how much effort are they using to sing? This is just thinking, noticing, watching, paying attention. They're not singing with a lot of effort. What I mean by that is we see a lot of choruses get up there and they make do, they try to make happen. I'm going to make this chord ring. You cannot make a chord ring. You let a chord ring. That is huge. Start teaching your members that, because the biggest trouble we get in is when we make.
If you go away, if you go away, if you go away. But if you stay, I'll make you a day like no day has been, nor will be again. We'll sail on the sun, we'll ride on the rain, we'll talk to the trees and worship the wind. Then if you go, I'll understand. Leave me just enough love to hold in my hand. If you go away.
So you get the point here. A, you should watch the rest of this video on your own. It is amazing. This performance, I saw it live, blew my mind. I sat there. There's very few performances that I've seen so far that have made me just go, this is one. This is one. Excellent. I know we're way over time. Guys, I do appreciate y'all hanging out this long. We did have some brainstorming stuff that we needed to go through at some point about teaching during the pandemic. I think there are plenty of resources on BHS. This is why I put it towards the tail end. I know that this was requested, but I put it at the tail end because there are plenty of resources on BHS website. I've got those links in here as well that I would like for those people that want to know about that to start looking into. There's some ideas around how to there's a device you can buy that's an FM modulator. Basically, you put it in a car. Everybody buys it. It's like $8. You put it in your car, and then there's a person that stands outside of it, and they all basically come into this one device, and they can hear over FM radio the chorus singing from within their cars. So that's a thought. There are ways to meet in person. I personally don't think that people should get together, especially if they're older and unhealthy or might have health problems. You just don't risk it. Don't risk it. Find a way to meet virtually. Find a way to do the car thing. That's perfectly fine and safe. But if you can, in my opinion, stay away from getting together physically in person, especially if you have health risks. Let me tell you this: singing barbershop 1 week, singing barbershop for a week, is that worth your life or any of the lives of your members? So that's the levity and the gravity of the scenario and situation. There are other ways to meet, and those are virtual. For like my chorus is made up of mostly older gentlemen, and they aren't very well versed with technology, though they get by with Zoom. They do okay with Zoom. But doing anything more advanced than that, having them record, send me things, stuff like that becomes a little bit difficult. But you can use the Zoom platform to record. You can use the Zoom platform to direct. You can use that to still keep them engaged. I think meeting, if anything, to hang out and build camaraderie during these times is definitely a valid option. Hang out and watch barbershop videos of people directing. It gives you expertise. It gives you an opportunity to learn. It gives them an opportunity to learn. And then you can say, hey guys, what do you want to do? How about this? Check this out. When we get back together, what if we sing this? Bink, and you play the song and get them excited about it. Get them all like riled up so that when you do meet, they're going to hit the table or they're going to hit the ground running and they're just going to make it happen. So there's all kinds of thoughts around that. I wanted to spend some time brainstorming that, but time was not precious to us this time, or was not good to us this time. And that was may have been just because I jam-packed too much stuff in this, but that's where we are. Any other things that we need to talk about? Anything that anybody wants to bring to the table, or any thoughts about this session so far? I mean, this is my first time teaching a class. Thank you for dealing with me and some of my brain stuff. Like I said earlier, I deal from dyslexia. I deal with the dyslexia, ADHD, and anxiety all together. So all those three things make an interesting combination when you try to teach a class. So thoughts. What are your thoughts?
I thought it was a very good class. I mean, I've taken a lot of classes in directing and other stuff from Harmony University and from Leadership Academy in my old district, and this is great. Good job.
Perfect. Thank you. Vern, have you gotten enough information out of this? And is it helpful?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. I do want to
got a lot of notes.
I do want to make sure to mention again. I'm gonna bring the first slide up here so that you have my email address. Please email me. Let me know how your course is doing. Send me some clips. I want to hear you. If you need some feedback on it, or hey, I'm not sure about this, or hey, what do you think about this? Wait, should I make this change? Should I not? Whatever. Stay in touch. There's going to be classes moving forward, or not necessarily classes, but I'm looking to start maybe a twice a month or once a month at least get together of all of our directors, and maybe hold a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting and get people on there and conversing and talking about some of the stuff. We have one of the most rich resources here are the types of knowledge and people we have directing our courses in our district. If we can get us all in a room to talk about the common problems, to talk about the things, we will grow as a district all together, and we'll grow stronger for it. So that's my goals over the next couple of years with the VP of Director Development or Course Director Development. That's what I want to do. Get us all together where we can talk, spread knowledge, and knowledge is free. So let's give people knowledge.
Sounds good. I'm glad that we're doing this again. Last year I sent an email to the district and I'm like, why don't we have course director? And they said, well, if there's interest, maybe we'll bring it back. So I'm glad we're able to add this year.
Yeah, they approached me. I've been knocking on their door for a little bit on how I could help with the district, and they were like, interesting you should mention that. We actually got an email. And I was like, oh, yeah. So Ben, your email came through, man.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah. Cool. All right, guys. I'll let you guys get back to it. It is exactly 4 o'clock in my time. I know it's 5.
All right.
I think
5 o'clock here.
Cool. 5 o'clock somewhere.
Yeah.
But thanks again, y'all. I really appreciate it. And, I'm looking forward to the next one.
All
right. Great.
Thanks, DC.
Enjoyed it.